Chapter 534. Don't stand on ceremony, Jinshan said as she looked into Akatsuki's eyes. Granny, how is Chico now? Is she all right? Yifan was anxious to know his wife's condition. Her 7 spirits are very stable now, and her body is fine, Jinshan said to Yifan. It's just that her 3 spirits are not there yet, so she doesn't have much consciousness. Granny, I brought back Qianzi's true soul this time, Yifan said as he took out an exquisite wooden box from his bosom and placed it in front of Jin Tsongsi. Granny, please return this soul to your body. You got Chico's true spirit. Jinshan's eyes lit up as she took the wooden box from Yifan's hands. The wooden box was made of gloomy wood, 3 inches square and as black as ink. It was engraved with a soul-subduing talisman and was most suitable for storing spirits. Why is there only one true spirit? Where are the other 2 true spirits? Jinshan frowned after receiving the wooden box and looked up to ask Yifan. I only got 1 spirit, Yifan said in a low voice. The other 2 spirits are still in Matsumoto Takayoshi's hands. Jinshan looked at Yifan's Japanese robe and then looked at Akatsuki, who was dressed in red. She immediately understood everything. Everything was as she had feared. Yifan was now working for Matsumoto Takayoshi. Sigh. Jinshan sighed. This sigh made Yifan feel very guilty. Granny, Yifan knew that Jinshan had seen through everything about him and said guiltily, You don't have to explain. I understand. Jinshan, who was carrying Baihu, waved at Yifan and said calmly, Both of you, come in with me. Jinshan said as she tapped the ground with the tip of her foot. Her figure instantly rose into the air and flew toward the rumbling waterfall. Whoosh! When the woman and the fox were less than 10 feet away from the waterfall, a huge circular hole automatically appeared in the silver waterfall. The master and disciple flew in. Yifan and Akatsuki followed closely behind and entered Pear Blossom Palace. Yifan had the water-repelling divine pearl on him, so there was not a single drop of water on them. Hiss! Hiss! After seeing Baihu Zhao, whom they had not seen for many days, the red and green pythons guarding the entrance of Pear Blossom Palace immediately hissed excitedly. They and Zhao were both of a different species, and both of them belonged to Pear Blossom Palace. In addition, Zhao was especially concerned about them when she was still in her human form. She often gave them delicious food and even played with them when she had nothing to do. Thus, their relationship was very harmonious. However, ever since Zhao transformed into her fox form and left Pear Blossom Palace with Yifan, the 2 of them had been in low spirits. They had been guarding the stone door listlessly all day long as if they had lost a loved one. Now that they saw Zhao return to the palace, how could they not be happy? The 2 pythons quickly slithered in front of Jinshan and stared excitedly at Zhao in Jinshan's arms. Zhao jumped down from Jinshan's arms and jumped in front of the 2 pythons. Hiss! Hiss! The 2 pythons lowered their heads and used their huge heads to gently rub against Baihu's forehead. They looked very intimate. Baihu narrowed her eyes and used her forehead to gently nudge against the 2 pythons, letting out a whimper from time to time. Hiss! After the red python finished rubbing against Zhao's forehead, it suddenly hissed and turned to look at Yifan and Akatsuki, who were at the entrance of the cave. It hissed and flicked its tongue, revealing an ominous glint in its eyes. Hiss! At this moment, the green python also raised its head and stared at Yifan and Akatsuki with an ice-cold gaze. Although the 2 of them did not know what Zhao had experienced to lose her human form, they keenly felt that Zhao's spiritual aura was emitting from Yifan's body. Zhao's inner core was in this person's body, which was why she lost her human form and turned into a fox. Not only that, the evil aura on this young man's body was even more intense than the last time and had almost doubled in strength. The 2 pythons were now filled with hostility towards Yifan after he had stolen Zhao's inner core and brought an outsider with him. They flicked their long tongues and dragged their huge snake bodies as they slowly slithered to Yifan's side. They raised their snake heads and stared at Yi Fan and Akatsuki. Yi Fan looked at the two pythons in confusion, not understanding why they would suddenly become hostile towards him. Akatsuki nervously grabbed onto Yi Fan's arm. Her face was pale, and she did not dare to breathe loudly. Jinshan looked at Akatsuki's intimate actions towards Yi Fan and frowned slightly. Woo! When the white fox saw that the two giant pythons were hostile towards Yi Fan, it immediately jumped onto Yi Fan's shoulder. It anxiously whimpered at the two giant pythons who were sticking out their forked tongues, as if it was trying to explain something. Xiao Zhao was like this. No matter what Yi Fan did, she would always protect Yi Fan. Xiao Hong, Xiao Chui, don't mess around. Jinshan turned around and said to the two pythons. The two pythons turned their heads to look at Jinshan, then turned their heads to look at Yi Fan. They hissed and used their heads to nudge Baihu Xiao Zhao, who was on Yi Fan's shoulder, before slithering to the side. They didn't dare to disobey Jinshan's words. Seeing the pythons move away, the pale-faced Akatsuki finally let go of Yi Fan's arm. Rumble. Jinshan waved her long sleeves, and the huge stone door of Pear Blossom Palace instantly opened. Jinshan slowly walked in. Yi Fan and Akatsuki followed closely behind and entered Pear Blossom Palace. At this moment, Pear Blossom Palace was filled with a fragrance that refreshed the mind. More than 10 tall pear trees filled with pear blossoms stood on both sides. The pear blossoms were like snow and jade as they drifted down. It made people feel as if they were in a dream or a fairyland. Akatsuki, who was following behind Yi Fan, opened her beautiful eyes wide as she looked at the beautiful scene in front of her in disbelief. From the large pavilions to the small tables and stools, to the small tea trays and tea sets, everything was made of pear wood. Even the roads were paved with smooth and ancient pear wood. What a fairyland! Akatsuki sighed in her heart. Yi Fan, who was carrying Baihu on his shoulder, wasn't in the mood to appreciate the beautiful scenery in front of him. He only wanted to see his wife, whom he yearned for day and night. After passing through the winding corridors, the 3 people and 1 fox arrived at an elegant wooden house in the back garden. There was a wooden bed in the wooden house. On the bed lay a beautiful woman with fair skin. This person was none other than the Fujiwara no Chico that Yi Fan was worried about every day. Chico. Yi Fan immediately rushed to the wooden bed the moment he entered the house. Swoosh! The white fox on his shoulder also jumped onto the bed. Fujiwara no Chico had a calm expression. Her eyes were closed, and her breathing was steady as if she was asleep. When Akatsuki, who was dressed in red and wearing a veil, saw Fujiwara no Chico lying on the bed, her head buzzed. She couldn't believe that Yi Fan's wife looked exactly like her. How could there be such a miraculous thing in the world? Akatsuki's beautiful eyes widened as if she couldn't believe this fact. Kienko, looking at the woman he loved in front of him, Yi Fan, who was lying in front of the wooden bed, choked with sobs. He held Fujiwara Kienko's hand and gently placed it on his face. 2 streams of hot tears flowed from his eyes. Before coming here, he had a lot of things to say to his wife. Now that he saw his beloved wife, he couldn't say a single word. He just let his tears flow. Great love is speechless. Woo! Baihu rubbed against Fujiwara no Chico's face and whimpered incessantly. Seeing Yi Fan cry, Akatsuki had mixed feelings. She felt very upset. Ever since she met Yi Fan, this was the first time she saw Yi Fan cry so emotionally. Most of the time, she saw Yi Fan as cold as ice. He was unruly and made people not dare to approach him. God really knows how to play tricks on people. The same face, the same love for the same man. But the result was a completely different fate. Although Fujiwara no Chico's soul was incomplete and she was bettered, she had won Yi Fan's heart. Although she was always by Yi Fan's side, she had always drifted away from Yi Fan's love. If she had to choose, she would want to be the one lying on the bed. If Yi Fan could treat her the way he treated Fujiwara no Chico, even if it was only for a day, she would be satisfied even if she died. Looking at Yi Fan crying like a child, The dark clouds that shrouded Jinshan's heart gradually dissipated. She thought that Yi Fan and Akatsuki had already developed feelings for each other. Now it seemed that Yi Fan didn't do anything wrong to Fujiwara no Chiko. In his heart, there was only Fujiwara no Chiko and no one else. "Get up, Fan Air," Jinshan said as she reached out to help Yi Fan, who was crying in front of the bed, up. "Let me return Chiko's soul to her body. We can talk later." Jinshan was experienced, so she understood Yi Fan's feelings very well. With tears streaming down his face, Yi Fan wiped his tears with his sleeve and nodded. He got up from the bed and stood to the side with red eyes. Jinshan sat by the bed and gently opened the wooden box engraved with the soul-subduing talisman with her slender jade hands. Whoosh! As the wooden box was slowly opened, a soft white light immediately emitted from the box. Jinshan put the wooden box to her mouth and then chanted an incantation. She gently blew at the soft white light in the wooden box. Whoosh! The white light snaked out of the wooden box and slowly entered Fujiwara no Chiko's body through her nose. Buzz! Fujiwara no Chiko's body instantly emitted a soft white light and then slowly dissipated. Cough, cough, cough. After the white light dissipated, Fujiwara no Chiko immediately coughed violently and then stopped moving. "Chiko!" Yi Fan once again leaned over the bed and anxiously called out his wife's name. Jinshan put her thumb and index finger together and gently touched Fujiwara no Chiko's forehead. Buzz! As Jinshan's fingertips flashed with a golden light, Fujiwara no Chiko slowly opened her beautiful eyes. "Chiko is awake. Chiko is awake." Ha ha! Seeing his beloved wife open her eyes, Yi Fan immediately shouted excitedly with tears in his eyes. "Woo!" Bai Hu Xiao Zhao excitedly wagged her snow-white tail on the bed. As long as Yi Fan was happy, she was happy. "Chiko, you're finally awake," Yi Fan said loudly. He had spent so many days and nights in pain and longing. Now that his beloved wife was awake, how could he not be happy? However, Jinshan was not happy at all. Her beautiful eyes were wrinkled and she looked worried. Fujiwara no Chiko, who was lying on the wooden bed, immediately began to giggle when she opened her eyes and saw Yi Fan. She had a crazy look on her face and was drooling. She suddenly sat up and threw off the blanket covering her body. Then, she happily ran out of the door. This scene made Yi Fan and Yu Hong Ji flabbergasted and stunned on the spot. "Granny, what's wrong with Chinzi?" Yi Fan turned his head to ask Golden Silkworm, who was frowning in shock. Chapter 535. It was noon. Pear Blossom Palace. "Chiko, eat slowly. No one is going to fight with you." Beside the exquisite pearwood table, the silver-haired Yi Fan looked at Fujiwara no Chiko, who was gorging herself, and said with a pained expression. At this moment, Fujiwara Chinzi was in a frenzy. Her dark clouds were scattered, and she was chewing on the fat chicken in her hand with her mouth full of grease. As she chewed, she stared blankly at Yi Fan, who was sitting opposite her. "Don't just eat, drink some water," Yi Fan said as he poured a cup of tea and placed it in front of Fujiwara no Chiko. The crazy Fujiwara no Chiko glanced at Yi Fan from the corner of her eyes. She carefully picked up the teacup and put it to her mouth and gulped it down. "You don't recognize me? I am Yi Fan, your husband." Yi Fan asked Fujiwara no Chiko patiently. He had waited so long for his beloved wife to wake up, but he did not expect this to be the result. Fujiwara no Chiko did not say a word. She put down the teacup and continued to gnaw on the fat chicken in her hand. At this time, her face and hands were covered with grease. Her messy long hair stuck to the side of her mouth. The usual elegant, dignified, and pure beauty had turned into a crazy woman. Seeing this, Yi Fan immediately stood up and stretched out his hand to tidy up Fujiwara no Chiko's long hair. Fujiwara no Chiko saw Yi Fan stretch out his hand to touch her and immediately screamed. As she screamed, she stood up with the fat chicken in her hand. Then she stood on the tip of her foot and jumped up into the air. She stepped on the crown of the pear tree and flew over the roof, running into the back garden. Seeing this, Yi Fan was shocked. He did not expect his beloved wife to still be able to use her movement skills. Although her soul is incomplete and she's insane, her cultivation base and basic instincts are still there. It's just that his mind isn't as good as a normal person's. Jin Shan explained to Yi Fan. Granny, can she understand what I'm saying? Yi Fan turned around and asked Jin Shan. Her current intelligence is about the same as that of a 5-year-old child. She can still understand some simple words, Jin Shan said. But at this time, she has no memory and doesn't recognize you at all. But no matter what, she finally woke up. Yi Fan nodded. Jin Shan was right. No matter what, Chico was now a living person who could walk and run. Granny, I'll have to trouble you to take care of Chico. Fan Air will take his leave now, Yi Fan said as he stood up from the pearwood chair and knelt in front of Jin Shan. You're leaving? Jin Shan frowned and asked Yi Fan. I have to find a way to find the 9 cauldrons and rescue Qianzi's remaining 2 true souls. Yi Fan, who was kneeling on the ground, lifted his head and said to Golden Silkworm, Once Fan obtains Qianzi's true soul, I'll come back to visit Qianzi and Granny. Yi Fan said as he began to kowtow to Jin Shan. Sigh. Golden Silkworm sighed and reached out to help Yi Fan, who was kneeling on the ground, up. I will take care of Qianzi. Don't worry. When you go to the Eastern Sea, you must be more careful and learn to take care of yourself. I'll remember, Granny, Yi Fan replied. Go and say goodbye to Chico, Jin Shan said to Yi Fan. I don't know when you'll come back. Yi Fan nodded, and his figure instantly disappeared. Shwa! In the blink of an eye, Yi Fan appeared out of thin air in the back garden. At this time, Fujiwara no Chico was sitting on the branch of a tall pear tree and eating a fat chicken with relish. She did not notice Yi Fan's appearance at all. Chico, Chico! Yi Fan, who was standing under the pear tree, shouted at Fujiwara no Chico, who was sitting on the tree. Fujiwara no Chico stopped what she was doing and looked down at Yi Fan with her beautiful eyes. This time, she did not run away. The 2 of them, one on the tree and one under the tree, were several feet away from each other. This distance gave Fujiwara no Chico a sense of security. I'm leaving now. Be good and listen to your mother-in-law, Yi Fan said as he put on a bright smile on his face. Now, his wife was no different from a 3-year-old child. He had talked to Fujiwara no Chico as if he was coaxing a child. Who's Granny? Fujiwara no Chico asked Yi Fan foolishly. Her expression was no different from a child's. The one in the beautiful dress is Granny. Yi Fan looked up at Fujiwara no Chico on the tree and said, You have to listen to her and don't run around. Do you hear me? Fujiwara no Chico nodded heavily and continued to eat the fat chicken. This is for you. As Yi Fan said this, he took out the pair of porcelain dolls that Akatsuki gave him and gently placed them on the ground. I'm leaving now. I'll come to see you next time. I'll bring you something good to eat, Yi Fan said with a forced smile. Fujiwara no Chico said vaguely as she chewed on the chicken in her mouth. With red eyes, Yi Fan looked at his wife who was sitting on the tree like a child. He gritted his teeth and steeled his heart. He turned around and used his movement technique to leave. Above the clouds, Yi Fan flew at high speed with Akatsuki. At this time, Yi Fan's mood could be described as half happy and half worried. He was happy that his wife was awake. He was worried that his wife's mind was low, just like a child. Akatsuki's mind was full of questions. Why did she look exactly like Fujiwara no Chico? Even their figures were almost exactly the same. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? Perhaps the heavens were deliberately playing tricks on her. Akatsuki thought in her heart. The 2 were silent all the way, each with their own thoughts. In the blink of an eye, the auspicious clouds under their feet had already floated out of the Miao territory. Below them were undulating mountains. At this time, the sky was covered with dark clouds and the air was humid. A heavy rain was brewing. Yi Fan urged the auspicious clouds under his feet to continue to rise. He directly raised the auspicious clouds above the dark clouds. In this way, even if the rain was heavy, it would not affect their journey. Whoosh! Just as Yi Fan broke through the dark clouds, A huge green arc of light rushed out from the dark clouds 10 miles in front of them, whistling in their direction. The arc of light was more than 3 feet long and shone with green light. The thick layer of dark clouds was directly split open by this huge green arc of light, creating a 5 feet wide cloud path. With a loud bang, someone had launched a sneak attack. Yi Fan was shocked. He had never thought that above the clouds, there would be an expert lying in ambush and sneak attacking him. What shocked him even more was that even with his current level of spiritual chi cultivation, he actually didn't notice any clues in advance. The green arc of light was extremely fast, like lightning. From the time it appeared to the front of Yi Fan, it did not even take a blink of an eye. So fast, Yi Fan's pupils shrank in an instant. In a flash, he did not have time to think. Ha! Yi Fan grabbed Akatsuki, who had not yet reacted. At the same time, he suddenly urged the pure spiritual chi in his body to display a peerless movement skill. Whoosh! Yi Fan and Akatsuki's figures disappeared into thin air at the same time. Cha! As soon as the two figures disappeared, the white auspicious clouds under their feet were instantly split into two by the green arc of light. Whoosh! Yi Fan brought the stunned Akatsuki and appeared more than 200 feet above the auspicious clouds in an instant. So fast, so strong, to be able to display such a domineering and shocking power from 10 miles away. The person who came was definitely a first-class expert. If not for his quick reaction, the two of them would have been split into two by this lightning-like arc of light. With his spiritual chi, he might be able to escape this disaster. But with Akatsuki's cultivation, it would definitely be difficult for her to escape this disaster. Huff! Huff! Akatsuki was stunned by the scene in front of her. Her face was pale, and she was constantly gasping for breath, her chest rising and falling. In a moment of desperation, Yi Fan had used 60% of his spiritual chi to activate his movement skill. This kind of speed made Akatsuki almost unable to breathe. If not for her cultivation, she would have fainted by now. Whoosh! Just as the two of them were beginning to recover from the shock, another green arc of light rushed out from the black clouds at a high speed from 10 miles away. This time, the speed of the arc of light was faster than before, and it was almost instantaneous. The opponent's move made Yi Fan instantly fly into a rage. With a thought, he suddenly mobilized the green spiritual chi in his chi sea, and then used the move recorded in the Crescent Moon chapter of the Proud Moon Heavenly chapter, and flicked his sleeves. Whoosh! Yi Fan flicked his sleeves, and a dazzling green arc of light instantly shot out from Yi Fan's sleeves. The arc of light was more than 3 feet long, and the green light was resplendent. Like a crescent moon, it instantly cut through the void and went straight for the green arc of light. Boom! A loud sound was heard, and the air waves scattered in all directions. The green light shattered, and the green light danced in the air. Whoosh! A transparent light wave instantly spread out at a rapid speed. The black clouds that filled the sky were instantly shaken by this light wave, and quickly retreated, forming a huge hole that was nearly 100 feet wide. Whoosh! The air waves blew Yi Fan's white robe high into the air, and it fluttered in the wind. Akatsuki, who was dressed in red, used her long sleeves to block the oncoming wind, and tightly held Yi Fan's arm, for fear that this strong wind would blow them down from the sky. 10 miles away, a large mass of black clouds quietly floated there, motionless. Compared to the other clouds that were gradually retreating, this mass of black clouds seemed to be out of place. Hongji, you and Xiao Zhao go down first and wait for me, Yi Fan said as he slowly took out the white jade mask from his bosom and gently put it on his face. Then, he took out Baihu from the hat and handed her to Akatsuki. The strength of the expert he had encountered this time was something he had never seen before. In order to ensure their safety and to be able to act freely, he decided to send Yu Hongji and Xiao Zhao back to the surface first. Akatsuki took the whimpering Baihu and said to Yi Fan with a frown, "You be careful. She did not know how to fly in the air, and she would only distract Yifan if she stayed by his side. Yifan responded, and then flicked his sleeves at Akatsuki. Whoosh! Auspicious clouds immediately appeared beneath Akatsuki's feet and carried her and Baihu's bodies, and they quickly floated down to the mountains below. Clap, clap, clap! Following the sound of clapping hands, 3 figures slowly appeared from the huge black clouds. The 3 of them were middle-aged men, and they were dressed in Dongyin clothes. Each of them had a long sword in their hands, and they had a faint smile on their faces. No wonder Daitengu was forced to leave the throne. This child really has some skills. One of them, wearing a green robe and white clogs, spoke first. This person's face was pale, his lips were blood red, and he had an evil smile on his face. His pair of green eyes made people tremble in fear. Us 3 demons taking action against this child. Are we making a mountain out of a molehill? Another middle-aged man wearing a yellow robe curled his lips and said. This person had thin eyebrows, white skin, and a slightly fat body. His words were strange, and he was covered in an evil aura. Quickly complete the mission the Demon King gave us. Don't let the 10 guards take the credit. Another middle-aged man wearing a white cloak frowned and said, Last time Kuju Junichiro did not complete the mission, causing the Demon King to be unable to raise his head in front of great god Xietian. This time, no matter what, we have to take this person's life and let the Demon King take credit in front of great god Xietian. The white-clothed man who spoke had eagle eyes and sharp eyebrows, Buffon's aura, and his voice was filled with a sense of dignity. After hearing what the 3 of them said, Yifan under the mask became serious. These 3 people were the same as Kuju Junichiro. They were the 3 demons of Xietian's 9 demon guards. He never thought that in order to take his life, the other side would use 3 of them at once. Chapter 536. Whoosh! Just as Yifan was deep in thought, the 3 men standing in the dark clouds 10 miles away disappeared in an instant. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the 3 men appeared out of thin air 10 feet away from Yifan. In the blink of an eye, the 3 men moved 10 miles in an instant. What a fast movement technique! Yifan frowned under the mask. The movement technique of the 3 men in front of him was not inferior to his own. You're Yifan? The middle-aged man in a loose green robe stared at Yifan with a pair of sharp green eyes and asked with an evil smile. Yes, Yifan replied coldly. You're so young, yet you're able to avoid my green flame blade's blade energy. The younger generation will surpass us in time. It's admirable, the green-robed man said with an evil smile as he lowered his head slightly to Yifan. I'm Yamamoto Kiyoshi, one of the 9 demons under Xietian. Please advise me, Yifan-kun. Yifan narrowed his eyes and did not reply. Obviously, the 2 dazzling green saber cheese were released by this person. Yamamoto, we agreed before we came here that each of us would make 3 moves. The middle-aged man in the yellow robe said to the green-robed man with a strange smile. You've already made 2 moves, so there's only 1 left. If this move doesn't kill this kid, then the credit will go to me. Hee. Yamamoto Kiyoshi chuckled. Don't worry, the 2 moves just now were just appetizers. I'm definitely going to take the credit. Yamamoto Kiyoshi took a step forward as he spoke. His eyes flashed green as he looked at Yifan with a smile. Yifan stared at Yamamoto Kiyoshi coldly. At the same time, he used his 5 senses to fully perceive his opponent's every move. The 2 of them looked at each other in silence, not moving at all. Whoosh! A gust of cold wind blew past and caused the white and green robes on their bodies to flutter in the air, making a loud sound. Yifan-kun, I'm sorry to offend you, Yamamoto Kino said as he bowed to Yifan. Whoosh! As soon as he bent over, Yamamoto Kino's figure vanished into thin air. Yamamoto's movements were so fast that a white circle of light instantly spread out from under his feet. This scene caused Yifan's pupils to constrict. What a powerful movement technique! Even with his current eyesight, he could barely keep up The middle-aged man in the yellow robe frowned slightly after seeing Yamamoto Seino's movements. Void fragmentation step. The middle-aged man in the white cloak said in a low voice. Schwa. As soon as Yamamoto's figure disappeared, he instantly appeared in front of Yi Fan out of thin air. He had a murderous look on his face and an evil smile on his face. His eyes shone with a green light, and his body was wrapped in green flames. Schwa. Yamamoto Kino's hair and beard rose to the sky, and a pair of glowing palms struck toward Yi Fan's chest. This move was fast, accurate, steady, and ruthless. It could be said to be a perfect move. At this time, Yi Fan's attack speed was not inferior to Yamamoto Kino's. He suddenly urged 50% of the pure spiritual energy in his body to gather in his palms, and at the same time, both of his palms burst out in 5 colors, rushing toward his opponent's glowing palms. Boom! Green light splashed, and the 5 colors exploded. Both palms full of spiritual energy instantly collided. Boom! A glowing 5-colored shockwave burst out in an instant and expanded rapidly. Boom! Yi Fan could only feel a huge surge of energy from his opponent's palms. It was so strong that he had never seen it before. In a flash, he suddenly increased his spiritual energy to 70% and fought against Yamamoto Kino with all his might. Buzz! Yi Fan's 5-colored glowing palms instantly surged with spiritual energy. At this time, the intersection of their palms had formed a 6-colored glowing ball of spiritual energy that was 10 feet in size. Above the glowing ball, green light shone, and the 5 colors shuttled back and forth. Ha-ha! Hooray! Hooray! Yamamoto Kino, who was surrounded by green flames, laughed crazily, and his green eyes shone brightly. Boom! Yamamoto Kino, who was laughing crazily, suddenly opened his eyes, and 2 3-foot-thick green glowing balls suddenly shot out from his palms. In an instant, they directly pierced through the 6-colored glowing ball and hit Yi Fan's chest heavily. Boom! At the same time, a huge, dazzling green halo spread out from Yamamoto Kino's palms, and the surrounding area was suddenly filled with strong winds and turbulent airwaves. Oh my, this Yamamoto is really something. Is it necessary to use such strong spiritual energy to deal with such a small child? A middle-aged man in a yellow robe complained in a strange voice while using his long sleeves to block the turbulent airwaves. The man in a white cloak had his hands behind his back, and his eagle-like eyes were slightly wrinkled, but he did not speak. At this time, Yi Fan only felt an overwhelming force coming from his chest, and then there was a sweet taste in his throat as blood rushed to his head. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth, and then his body flew upside down. At this time, he had just obtained the spiritual energy of the proud moon heavenly scripture in his energy reserve, and it had not been completely integrated with the spiritual energy of the mysterious sky secret technique in his meridians. This caused him to have to be very careful when using his telekinesis to mobilize spiritual energy to prevent the 2 spiritual energies from colliding with each other in his meridians. This directly caused the speed of mobilizing spiritual energy to be much slower than before. In addition, the opponent was one of the 9 demons under Xietian, who had ghostly body movements and overbearing spiritual energy that could be controlled freely. It was not surprising that Yi Fan was defeated by this move. In a fight between masters, a small mistake could lead to death on the spot. This time, Yi Fan personally experienced this truth. When it rains, it pours. When the boat is late, it encounters a headwind. He had finally obtained the spiritual energy of the proud moon heavenly scripture, but in the end, because he had not integrated the 2 spiritual energies, it affected his true strength. Yi Fan, who was in midair, steadied his body while silently reciting the cloud's soaring chant. Whoosh! Auspicious clouds condensed in an instant, supporting Yi Fan's body. Even so, he was still shaken more than 10 feet away by the opponent's overbearing spiritual energy. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his hand, took a deep breath, and slowly stood up from the auspicious clouds. Although the speed of mobilizing spiritual energy was not as fast as before, with the new spiritual energy, his resistance to attacks had greatly improved. Although he had spat out blood just now, it was just a stream of blood, and it was not a big deal. Baka. After the airwave dissipated, Yamamoto Kino looked at Yifan, who was standing on the auspicious clouds, and cursed in exasperation. 3 moves had passed, but Yifan did not die on the spot like he had imagined. He wanted to continue attacking and kill Yifan, but he could only use 3 moves because of the agreement. As one of the 9 demons, if he went back on his word and the 10 guards heard about it, they would definitely laugh their heads off. However, if he could not take this person's life after 3 moves, wouldn't that be even more embarrassing? If he was given another chance, he would definitely take this person's life. If he had known this would happen, he would have added 20% more power or directly used the green flame sword at his waist to cut this kid down. Yamamoto Kino's face turned pale at the thought of his mistake. He glared with a pair of green eyes and directly used his movement technique to return to his original position. His face was ashen, and he did not say a word. The man in the middle in the yellow robe smiled and patted Yamamoto Kino's shoulder, saying, "Brother Yamamoto, you don't have to worry about it. Isn't it the same no matter which of the 3 of us takes this kid's life? As the saying goes, people make mistakes, just like horses stumble. It's not that Brother Yamamoto's methods are bad. It's just that you're too merciful. That's why that kid was lucky enough to escape with his life. What do you think, Brother Yamamoto?" Yamamoto Kino glanced at the man in the yellow robe with his green eyes and did not speak. "Brother Yamamoto, don't worry. I'll take care of this kid." The man in the yellow robe smiled and squinted his long and narrow eyes. He stepped on the void and slowly walked toward Yifan. "You've already taken 3 moves from Brother Yamamoto. If you take 3 more from me, it'll be unfair." The man in the yellow robe walked toward Yifan and took out a white handkerchief from his arms. "I'll cover my eyes and exchange 2 moves with you. If I can't take your life in 2 moves, then I, Misaki Kimura, am not as good as you." The man in the yellow robe tied the handkerchief behind his head as he spoke. He stopped in the void about 10 feet away from Yifan and stood with his hands behind his back. Yifan narrowed his eyes and began to mobilize the 2 great spiritual powers in his body. Since the 2 great spiritual powers could not be integrated for the time being, he might as well divide them into 2. Buzz. With a thought from Yifan, the proud moon heavenly scripture's spiritual power in his energy reserve began to slowly flow toward the meridians on the right side of Yifan's body. At the same time, the 5-colored mysterious sky secret essence's spiritual power in the left side of his meridians began to slowly retreat and pour into his energy reserve. He wanted to divide his energy reserve and meridians with the run and do meridians as the boundary and let the 2 great spiritual powers occupy each of them. In other words, he wanted to fill the left side of his body with the mysterious sky secret essence's spiritual power and the right side with the proud moon heavenly scripture's spiritual power. This way, he could use both of his palms at the same time without any conflict. Buzz. As the 2 great spiritual powers surged and occupied the left and right sides of Yifan's body, his entire body began to glow. The left side of his body suddenly shone with 5 colors, and the right side of his body shone with a dazzling green light. The color of the white jade mask on his face was divided into 2 from the middle. Half of it shone with a green light, and the other half with 5 colors. The brilliance was dazzling. Yamamoto Kino was confused by the spiritual power emitted from Yifan's body. He frowned and asked, "What kind of technique is this kid practicing? This person must be eliminated today. Otherwise, he will become a big problem in the future." The middle-aged man in the white robe said with a dignified expression, "No wonder great God Sion said that this person was his nemesis. Now that he had seen it with his own eyes, he was indeed extraordinary. This was the first time he had seen someone who could still emit such a domineering aura after taking a heavy blow from Yamamoto Kino. Dating was right. This person was definitely not someone to be trifled with in the future. If he were to become an enemy of this person in the future, he must kill him in one move, without mercy. Yo, not bad. Mitsuaki Kimura, who had his eyes covered by a handkerchief, laughed as he felt the strong change in Yifan's aura. Swoosh! Yifan, who was surrounded by a dazzling light, disappeared in an instant. He who strikes first gains the advantage. This time, he was going to take the initiative to attack. Mitsuaki Kimura, who had his eyes covered, tilted his head, and the corner of his mouth curled up. Swoosh! Without any movement, his body disappeared from the spot in an instant. Yamamoto Kino and the middle-aged man in the white robe immediately looked up. Boom! Chapter 537. Buzz. High up in the sky, a huge ball of light appeared out of nowhere. The ball of light was more than 10 zhang in size. It was dazzling and colorful. Buzz, buzz, buzz red, purple, white, gold, and green. 5 streaks of lightning shuttled back and forth on the surface of the ball of light, making buzzing sounds. Inside the ball of light, Misaki Kimura, whose eyes were covered by a white handkerchief, and Yifan, who was wearing a white jade mask, had their palms collided. Yifan's white robe and silver hair fluttered. Misaki Kimura's yellow robe and hair tie fluttered. At this moment, Yifan frowned and looked serious under the mask. Even though he had already used both the mysterious heaven secret technique and the proud moon heavenly scripture at the same time, the two spiritual energies had yet to merge completely. As a result, when the two spiritual energies, one yin and one yang, one hard and one soft, rushed out from Yifan's palms, they immediately canceled each other out in the air. Therefore, although Yifan had used 50% of each of the two spiritual energies, the real power was not even 30%. The other 20% of the spiritual energy had already canceled each other out the moment it rushed out and disappeared. It's a pity for such a young man. The blindfolded Misaki Kimura laughed sarcastically. However, to be able to die in my hands, you can consider your death worthy. Boom! As soon as Misaki Kimura finished speaking, the spiritual energy around his body suddenly surged. A yellow flame rushed out from his body and into the sky. The spiritual power of the flame soared into the sky, and the yellow light was so dazzling that the clouds above his head instantly turned golden. Yifan only felt an extremely powerful force coming from his opponent's palms. It was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The 5-colored ball of spiritual energy was instantly expanded by the powerful spiritual pressure emitted by the opponent. Yifan's pupils shrank instantly. Sayonara, Yifan-kun, Misaki Kimura said with a sinister smile in the middle of the flames. He suddenly exerted force with both palms. Boom! As a yellow halo rapidly expanded from Misaki Kimura's palms, Yifan's 5-colored ball of spiritual energy was instantly broken by the spiritual pressure emitted by Misaki Kimura, turning into countless 5-colored light fragments. Bang! Yifan's figure was sent flying backwards at high speed by this powerful force, straight into a dark cloud several tens of feet behind him. Yifan, halfway up the mountain, Akatsuki, who was dressed in a red robe and carrying Baihu in her arms, screamed at the top of her lungs. Although she couldn't see the battle in the sky clearly with her eyesight, Yifan's 5-colored spiritual energy ball could see everything clearly. The moment she saw the 5-colored balls of light shatter, her heart also shattered along with the 5-colored balls of light. Woo! 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 Baihu Xiao Zhao jumped out of Akatsuki's arms and ran toward the mountain peak while sobbing crazily. Yi! Fan! At this moment, Akatsuki was heartbroken. Tears streamed down her face as she screamed towards the sky. Whoa! Baihu, who had already reached the peak of the mountain, howled towards the sky. The voices of a human and a fox echoed in the mountain valley. Ayaya, I seem to have used a little too much strength. Don't tell me I've shattered his body? Mitsuaki Kimura, who was floating in the air, complained in a strange tone as he reached out to remove the handkerchief covering his eyes. He looked at the dark cloud in the distance with a pair of narrow eyes. I hope the head is fine. Otherwise, how am I going to bring it back? Tisk, Yamamoto Seno, who was dressed in a green robe, had a dissatisfied look on his face as he curled his lips in disdain. This Mitsuaki Kimura was simply taking advantage of the situation. If it weren't for his previous 3 moves, this Yifan wouldn't have been killed in 1 move. After fighting for so long, in the end, it was all thanks to this guy. Go and cut off the head, then we'll return to Dongying, the middle-aged man in the white cloak said calmly. Misaki Kimura smiled and carefully folded the white handkerchief and put it into his pocket. Then he disappeared instantly. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, his figure appeared in front of the dark cloud several tens of feet away. Pour a cup of sake, oh. Pour into my throat, oh. Beautiful girl, please don't leave. Oh, please don't leave. Mitsuaki Kimura hummed a vulgar Dongying song as he stepped into the air. He squatted down and reached out to wave the dark cloud with his sleeves. His mood was very good right now. He had killed Yifan in a single move and gotten rid of Xietian's greatest worry. When he returned this time, he would definitely be rewarded by Xietian. Perhaps he would even be able to sit on the throne of the demonic king. Hey. Thinking of the jealous gazes of the remaining 6 demons and 10 guards when he returned, Mitsuaki Kimura couldn't help laughing in a proud manner. What eldritch reincarnated, what destined nemesis, wasn't he killed in a single move by him? Those fellows only knew how to scare him. Beautiful girl, please don't leave. Please don't leave. Mitsuaki Kimura sang, while rhythmically waving the dark cloud with his sleeves, just like a beat. However, when the dark cloud in front of him scattered, Mitsuaki Kimura stopped saying the word leave. The scene in front of him stunned him, and his face filled with shock. His mouth was still on the word leave. In front of him, there was a giant, oval-shaped ice shell that was silently floating there. The ice shell was crystal clear and filled with light. There was a faint red light that kept flashing inside. Nanny? Mitsuaki Kimura blurted out. Huh? Just as Misaki Kimura was in a daze, the white ice shell instantly burst open. Shwa! A dazzling giant arc of red light appeared above Mitsuaki Kimura's head and quickly fell down from his forehead. The red arc of light was so fast that it formed a red light curtain from top to bottom. Cha! A red light came from Mitsuaki Kimura's forehead all the way to the bottom. Mitsuaki Kimura's eyes opened wide, and his pupils contracted. His mouth formed an O shape, and his face filled with disbelief. Whoosh! Crystal clear ice shards fell from the sky slowly. Amidst the ice shards, Yifan's silver hair fluttered in the wind as he held the flaming sword in his hand. He was panting heavily as he stared at Mitsuaki Kimura in front of him. When Mitsuaki Kimura attacked just now, Yifan had mobilized the ice core in his chi-si and mixed it with the proud Lunar Heavenly Scripture's spiritual energy to form a thick layer of ice shell around himself. As the saying goes, attack and retreat. Defense and offense were equally important. Before he could find a way to counter the opponent's attack, he had to protect himself well. Otherwise, he would lose his life before he could find the opponent's weakness. With the ice core's ice core and the proud Lunar Heavenly Scripture's spiritual energy, the ice shell was both flexible and tough. It blocked Mitsuaki Kimura's powerful attack. But even so, Yifan was still shaken by Mitsuaki Kimura's attack. Initially, he wanted to calm down and gather his spiritual energy inside the ice shell. Who would have thought that Mitsuaki Kimura would think that he was already dead and kind of take his head without warning? How could he let go of such an opportunity? Just as Misaki Kimura was stirring the dark clouds, Yifan had already pulled out the leaf fire sword from within the ice shell. He secretly gathered his spirit energy and was ready to attack. The flaming sword was originally a hot weapon. In order to unleash the full power of the flaming sword at close range, Yifan deliberately divided his spiritual energy into 2 parts. One part was used to activate the flaming sword, while the other part was used to suppress the flames on the flaming sword. In this way, the flames on the leaf fire sword would be sealed on the sword blade, forming a dazzling red light sword with astonishing heat. Taking advantage of the moment when Mitsuaki Kimura was stunned, Yi Fan directly mobilized 50% of his spiritual energy and activated the flaming sword in his hand. At the same time, the sword broke out of the ice and slashed towards Mitsuaki Kimura. This scene made the other two demonic beasts dozens of feet away instantly change their expressions. They did not sense Yi Fan's aura just now, and thought that this young man had already been killed by Mitsuaki Kimura. But when they saw Yi Fan's ice shell, they realized that it was not that Yi Fan did not have any aura just now. It was that his aura was sealed by the ice shell. Yu Hongji, who was on the ground, immediately looked up when she heard the loud noise in the air. When she saw the huge red arc of light from the Leaf Fire Sword and the flashing cold ice shards in the sky, she was immediately ecstatic. Yi Fan was still alive. He was not dead yet. Wu, on the mountain peak, Baihu, whose eyes were red, immediately whimpered excitedly when she saw this scene. She kept swaying her thick white foxtail and stepping on the ground with her front paws. Whoosh! Yamamoto Kino, who was wearing a green robe, instantly appeared beside Mitsuaki Kimura's corpse and carried him up. Then he moved his body and instantly returned to the formation. He could not leave his comrade's corpse behind. At this time, Mitsuaki Kimura's eyes were blank, his pupils were dilated, his body was stiff, and he was no longer breathing. A trail of blood flowed from his forehead to the tip of his nose. Who's next? Yi Fan calmed his breathing and stared at the two demonic beasts opposite him as he asked. Among the three demonic beasts, he had already fought one demonic beast to a draw and killed one demonic beast. The only one left was the middle-aged man in the white robe. Looks like I'll have to do it, the middle-aged man in the white robe said calmly as he slowly stepped forward. Yamamoto Kino, who was wearing a green robe, frowned and stared at Yi Fan with his green eyes. The green flame sword in his hand made a cracking sound. Although he did not like Mitsuaki Kimura, he was still one of the 9 demonic beasts. Now that he saw his comrade being killed, how could he not feel angry? This time, regardless of whether Yi Fan was killed or not, the mission was still a failure. Because he had lost a comrade. His comrade of over 1,000 years was killed because he let his guard down. Mitsuaki Kimura's death was too unjust. I'm Takuramaki. Nice to meet you, the middle-aged man in the white robe said as he bowed slightly to Yi Fan. Yi Fan narrowed his eyes and prepared to face the enemy with his celestial weapon. Oh my, I was too careless. Just as the two were about to fight, the statue-like Mitsuaki Kimura suddenly opened his mouth and spoke. Whoosh! The trail of blood that had flowed to the tip of his nose slowly flowed back to his forehead. Whoosh! Mitsuaki Kimura's scattered pupils instantly returned to normal. This scene shocked Yi Fan so much that his soul flew out of his body, and he almost fell from the clouds. Mitsuaki Kimura, who had been slashed from head to toe by the departing flame sword, was still alive. How was this possible? Yi Fan was not the only one who was shocked. Yamamoto Seino, who was wearing a green robe, and Takakura Masaki, who was wearing a cloak, were also wide-eyed. It was as if they could not believe what they were seeing. I didn't expect you to have such a move. You're the first person in 2,000 years to cut me. The yellow-robed Mitsuaki Kimura slowly stood up and looked at Yi Fan with a sinister smile. You've won the first move. It's my turn for the second move. As Mitsuaki Kimura spoke, he slowly pulled out the sword at his waist. Buzz! The moment the sword was unsheathed, thousands of golden rays burst out from the blade. Azura blade. Masaki Takura, who was wearing a white cloak, frowned and said in a low voice. Yamamoto Kino, who was wearing a green robe, frowned even more deeply. Chapter 538. Buzz. With the roar of a tiger and the roar of a dragon, a dazzling golden saber appeared in Misaki Kimura's hand. The saber was 4 feet long, and its entire body was pure gold. It was shimmering with golden light, and a murderous aura emanated from it. On the golden hilt of the saber, there were 2 strings of golden cat's eye beads. It looked elegant, refined, and extraordinarily beautiful. After unsheathing the saber, Misaki Kimura slowly grasped the hilt of the saber with both hands. He held the Shura saber in front of him with the tip of the saber facing up and the blade facing outwards. His narrow eyes stared at Yi Fan with an evil smile on his face. Yi Fan held the sword with one hand and looked at Misaki Kimura with cold eyes. He did not move at all. I haven't unsheathed my Shura saber for more than 500 years. I didn't expect that I would use it today for a kid like you, Misaki Kimura said to Yi Fan in a strange tone. Fine, let me test your flame sword today. Let's see if it lives up to its name. As Misaki Kimura spoke, he began to exert force on the hilt of the saber. Boom! As soon as Misaki Kimura finished speaking, a golden flame burst out from the Shura saber in his hand. The flame was more than 3 feet wide and shot up into the sky. The golden light was dazzling, and the spiritual energy was rising. The violent flame blew Misaki Kimura's long hair up high, and his yellow battle robe fluttered loudly. The golden flames illuminated his face, which was filled with a sinister smile and a golden light. Seeing that Misaki Kimura had begun to gather energy, Yi Fan narrowed his eyes and began to mobilize the spiritual energy in his body to activate the Li-Fire sword in his hand. The spiritual energy in the Shantian secret treasure was the most yang, and the Li-Fire sword was a divine weapon of fire. The flame was the most yang, and the power of the yang spiritual energy to activate the divine weapon of yang was imaginable. Clang! Under the activation of Yi Fan's powerful spiritual energy, the Li-Fire sword let out a crisp sound instantly. Red light burst out, and the flame sword. Boom! A huge red flame instantly shot up from the distant fire sword into the sky, straight into the clouds. The red flame was dazzling, and as it shot up into the sky, the dark clouds floating above were dyed red, as if the clouds were being set on fire. The fire dragon on the departing fire sword glared angrily as flames coiled around it. Yi Fan's silver hair was blown up by the flames that soared into the sky. His white robes fluttered in the wind without any wind. The raging flames shone on his white jade mask, which was overflowing with light and color. It flickered and flickered continuously, creating a splendid scene. Rumor has it that the Li-Fire sword is a peerless divine weapon in the central region. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, it really does live up to its name, Yamamoto Seino, who was dressed in a green robe, said. Although the power of the divine armament cannot be underestimated, it cannot be completely relied on. Takakura Masaki, who was wearing a white cloak, said calmly as he looked at the flames of light from both sides. There's an old saying in the Central Plains, those who are good at swimming will die in the water. Those who play with fire will burn themselves. For a master, the right path is to raise one's own cultivation to the highest level. Blindly relying on the power of the divine armament will sooner or later be defeated by the divine armament. It seems that Kimura is sure to win this round. After listening to Maki Takakura's words, Yamamoto Seino nodded while looking at the two who were ready to go with a smile. He had already foreseen the outcome of this battle in advance. Misaki Kimura had been cultivating for more than 2,000 years. He understood this simple principle. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stood out among the other demons and sat on the throne of the 9 demons. In terms of spiritual power cultivation, Misaki Kimura had been cultivating for more than 2,000 years. His spiritual power was pure and rich. On the other hand, although Yi Fan's spiritual power cultivation was not bad, it was chaotic, and his yin and yang were chaotic. In terms of combat experience, Misaki Kimura had fought more than 1,000 battles, and hundreds of powerful demons had died in his hands. His combat experience was one of the best among the 9 demons. On the other hand, Yi Fan had only cultivated for a little more than a year. Even if he fought with masters every day, his combat experience was far inferior to Misaki Kimura's. As for intelligence and scheming, it was needless to say. How could a young boy in his early 20s be compared to a demon who had lived for more than 2,000 years? In terms of cultivation, experience, and intelligence, Misaki Kimura was far superior to his opponent. At this moment, Yi Fan could only place his hopes on the leaf fire sword in his hand. This young man was completely relying on his divine weapon. He was bound to lose. Furthermore, the Shura sword in Misaki Kimura's hand was extraordinary. Just like what Misaki Kimura had said, the Shura sword in his hand had not been unsheathed for more than 500 years. The last time it was unsheathed was during the banquet when he competed with the three-eyed Lord of the Ten Guards. However, not unsheathing the sword did not mean that the sword was mediocre. On the contrary, it reflected the cultivation of the sword's owner. It was not that Misaki Kimura did not want to unsheath the sword, but he had not met an opponent worthy of unsheathing the sword. This time, Yi Fan was dead for sure since he was able to draw his blade. On the other hand, the flames of the divine weapons in their hands had been pushed to the extreme. Buzz! The Shura sword was dazzling with a murderous aura. Clang! The leaf fire sword was surrounded by a red light. The two flames were so bright that they shot straight into the sky. The first style of Shura's 9 slashes, Shura's light-shattering slash. Misaki Kimura smiled evilly as he raised the Shura sword in his hand high above his head. Then he slashed it down from the sky. Boom! A huge golden screen of light tore through the air like a bolt of lightning, emitting a deafening boom. At the same time Misaki Kimura attacked, Yi Fan also raised the Everflame sword in his hand, which was wrapped in red light and blazing flames, high above his head and slashed downwards. Bang! A huge red screen of light was instantly emitted from the flaming sword, splitting the void. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The distance between the two sides was less than 300 feet. However, the light from the divine weapons in their hands had reached nearly 500 feet. In other words, when the two sides slashed their divine weapons down, the huge light curtain from their divine weapons would instantly slash down from the top of the other party's head. Boom! Boom! The two light curtains, one golden and one red, met in the air. Buzz! Misaki Kimura's golden sword energy and Yi Fan's red sword energy brushed past each other in the air, creating a string of golden and red light fragments. Boom! After the two light curtains brushed past each other, they continued to slash down from the top of each other's heads. The two light curtains did not collide directly. Instead, they slashed at each other. Yamamoto Seino, who was dressed in a green robe, widened his eyes. Takura Masaki, who was dressed in a white cloak, was also frowning. This move of Yi Fan's was simply a suicidal move. If it were anyone else, they would definitely use the leaf fire sword to deal with the opponent's sword energy. However, this guy deliberately avoided the opponent's sword energy and attacked the opponent directly. This way, he could hit the opponent with the sword energy. However, at the same time, the kid would also be slashed by Misaki Kimura's sword energy. This time, they were not only competing in killing moves, but also in defense. The two demons were shocked. What a move to cut off all means of retreat. What a move to destroy the net. Misaki Kimura was shocked when he saw Yi Fan's sword energy avoid his sword energy. This young man knew that his strength was not as good as his, and yet he was willing to risk his life to give him a fatal blow. Good kid. This way it would be easy. Whoever could kill the opponent in one move and block the opponent's killing move would be the winner. Under such circumstances, both sides would definitely not use their movement skills to dodge. The reason was simple. Once they used their movement skills to dodge, the killing move would deviate from its direction and would not hit the opponent. He had already boasted that he would kill the opponent in 2 moves. The first move had already failed, so this move must not be avoided. But then again, the two's moves were as fast as lightning. There was no way to dodge. Dozens of feet away, Yi Fan's face was solemn under the mask. He was resolute and decisive. The reason why he used such a suicidal move? Naturally, he had his own considerations. Since the ice shell formed by the ice core and the spiritual energy of the proud moon heavenly scripture could withstand Misaki Kimura's attack, it should be able to do the same this time. At the same time, Yifan quickly circulated 50% of the proud moon heavenly scripture's spiritual energy and mixed it with the cold energy from the ice core, forming a 3-foot thick, steel-like ice shell around himself. This way, he could attack and defend at will. At this time, he did not use all of his spiritual energy. After all, there was still an expert who had not made his move yet. He had to conserve his strength. Just now, 50% of his spiritual energy was not enough to kill Misaki Kimura. This time, he used 70% of his mysterious sky secret technique's spiritual energy. Coupled with the fact that he caught his opponent off guard, he should be able to kill him easily. Boom! Dazzling red light and scorching heat descended from the sky, crashing straight down onto Misaki Kimura's head. This scene did not make Yifan happy. Instead, he felt a chill down his spine. The reason was very simple. Before the red light of the Lee Fire Sword hit Misaki Kimura, Yifan saw the corner of Misaki Kimura's mouth curl up. A strange smile appeared on his face. That smile was like a ghost, sending chills down one's spine. Asterisk boom. Asterisk at the same time that Misaki Kimura was hit, the golden light also hit Yifan's ice shell. Asterisk crack, asterisk a crisp sound was heard. Ice shards flew everywhere, filling the sky. Yifan used the proud moon heavenly scripture's spiritual energy and the ice core's frost chi to form a huge ice shell. But the golden light instantly shattered it. Asterisk swoosh, asterisk after the golden light shattered Yifan's ice shell, it did not slow down and continue to strike down on Yifan's head. In a flash, Yifan did not have time to think. In a moment of desperation, he gathered the remaining 2 spiritual energies in his body above his head. At the same time, he used the flaming sword in his hand to block. But at this time, it was useless to resist. The domineering golden screen of light instantly broke through Yifan's spirit chi walls that canceled each other out and collided with the departing fire sword. Asterisk bang, asterisk under the heavy impact. Yifan felt his vision turn black. His body immediately smashed into the ground like a cannonball. I lost. This Misaki Kimura's strength is far above mine. I'm not his opponent at all. This time, I'm really going to die. Chico, wait for me. I will go to the evil cauldron to find you. Xiao Zhao, Brother Yi has wronged you. I owe you a debt. Brother Yi will repay you in his next life. Yifan. Seeing Yifan fall from the clouds, Akatsuki immediately screamed at the top of her lungs. As she screamed, she gathered all the spiritual energy in her body. Then, using all her strength, she pushed off the ground and rushed into the sky. Asterisk, whoosh, asterisk, a red shadow rushed into the sky. Asterisk crack, asterisk, when Akatsuki reached the height of a few hundred feet, she grabbed Yifan's body with both hands. But Yifan's speed was too fast. The moment she caught Yifan, the two paused for a moment. Then, they quickly fell to the ground again. Akatsuki gritted her jade teeth and pushed her body to the limit. Bang! Akatsuki, who was holding Yifan, landed on the ground with both feet. Boom! On the ground within a 3-zhong radius instantly caved in. Rocks and dust flew everywhere. Yifan! Akatsuki could no longer care about the churning blood in her body. She took off the white jade mask on Yifan's face and loudly shouted Yifan's name. At this time, Yifan's face was pale. His eyes were closed and blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth. He lay motionless in Akatsuki's arms. Woo-woo! On the mountain peak, Baihu sobbed as she madly rushed down the mountain. Because she was too fast, she rolled down the mountain several times. Baihu ignored the pain and continued to rush forward. Covered in dirt, she rushed to Yifan's side. Woo-woo! Baihu sobbed as she licked Yifan's face. Tears fell from her eyes like rain. Yifan slowly opened his eyes. Yifan! Akatsuki, whose face was covered in tears, saw that Yifan had woken up. She immediately wiped her tears and shouted, Hong Ji. Yi Fan, who was bleeding from the corner of his mouth, said weakly, I, I can't take it anymore. Nonsense. You're talking nonsense. Akatsuki, whose eyes were red, shouted as she pressed her palm against Yi Fan's chest. Then, she mobilized the spiritual energy in her body to heal Yi Fan. Buzz! A soft red light flowed from Akatsuki's palm into Yi Fan's chest. Don't waste your spiritual energy, Yi Fan stuttered. I have something to tell you. I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen. Akatsuki cried as she continued to release her spiritual energy. She knew that Yi Fan was leaving behind his last words. After the spiritual energy entered Yi Fan's body, it instantly dissipated. This caused Akatsuki's heart to break. She was devastated. Yi Fan's sea of energy had already shattered and could not store any spiritual energy. Not only that, his internal organs had practically stopped working. All the meridians in his body were completely broken. Buzz! The two inner cores in Yi Fan's body seemed to have sensed their master's injuries and continued to release spiritual energy into his meridians. However, at this moment, his meridians were completely broken. The spiritual energy released by the two inner cores had no effect at all. Hong-ji, Yi Fan struggled to speak to Akatsuki. You, bring Xiao Xiao back to Lihua Palace. I beg you, Akatsuki cried as she nodded. Xiao. Yi Fan looked at Baihu. Yi, brother, I'm sorry. As Yi Fan spoke, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Then his head tilted to the side, and he stopped breathing. Yi Fan, Akatsuki cried as she shouted. Woo! Baihu's tears fell like rain. As she sobbed, she crazily used her claws to push Yi Fan's body. This time, Yi Fan did not wake up. Ayaya, he's finally dead. In the sky, Misaki Kimura covered his eyes with his hand and looked down from the clouds. Go get his head. We're returning to Japan. Takakura Maki said. Yoshi, Misaki Kimura, who was in a good mood, said with a smile as he sheathed his sword. However, his figure disappeared in an instant and then reappeared on the ground. Clang! Seeing Misaki Kimura appear, the frost dragon sword at Yi Fan's waist instantly floated above Yi Fan's corpse and made a buzzing sound. The frost dragon and the frost dragon sword had used a lot of spiritual power to break through the barrier to fight against Yagyu Ryanosuk's black dragon. At this time, it could not appear to save its master. Buzz! The leaf fire sword in Yi Fan's hand also floated in the air. Together with the frost dragon sword, it blocked in front of Misaki Kimura. These two swords belong to me. Misaki Kimura smiled as he reached for the two divine weapons. Whoosh! Before Misaki Kimura's hand touched the two divine weapons, a red arc of light went straight for his hand. It was Akatsuki. She wanted to avenge Yi Fan, even if she was no match for him. Baka! Misaki Kimura did not expect Akatsuki to attack him. As he cursed, he waved one hand. Bang! The red arc of light instantly scattered. Bang! Akatsuki's body instantly flew backward and fell heavily on the ground several feet away. Woo! Baihu bared her teeth and rushed toward him. Bang! As soon as Baihu flew, Misaki Kimura grabbed her and threw her beside Akatsuki. Misaki Kimura whistled and slowly walked toward Yi Fan's corpse. If you take another step forward, I will kill you. When Misaki Kimura was less than 3 feet away from Yi Fan, a clear voice suddenly sounded. Whoosh! As soon as the voice fell, a figure appeared in front of Yi Fan out of thin air. This person was wearing a snow-white robe with a dark green jade belt around his waist. His face was like the moon in mid-autumn, and his eyes were as bright as the stars in the sky. He was handsome and charming, and his lips were red and his teeth were white. When Misaki Kimura saw this person, he frowned and asked, "Who are you?" With his cultivation, he did not notice this person approaching him. Chapter 539. Nieching? Misaki Kimura's expression changed when he heard this name. He didn't expect the person to be the famous Thousand Demons Hall Master. Swish! Swish! Both Yamamoto Kino and Takagurumaki were shocked when they found out that the person who had appeared was the leader of the Thousand Devil Hall, Nieching. They looked at each other and disappeared in an instant before reappearing next to Kimura Mitsuaki. Great God Xietian had told them about the Thousand Demons Hall Master Nieching and the Myriad Immortals Tower Master Bai Sheng. It was said that these two people's cultivation had already reached the true immortal realm. The reason why they were unwilling to ascend was because they wanted to benefit the demons and ghosts. In the demon realm and ghost realm, there was no one who didn't know about them. Even Great God Xietian was somewhat respectful towards them. If it wasn't for Nieching and Bai Sheng's secret protection, this brat surnamed you would have died many times. Woo! Woo! After seeing Nieching, the white fox, Xiao Zhao, immediately struggled to get up and ran in front of him while sobbing. It looked at Nieching with a face full of tears and wailed incessantly. Akatsuki, who was bleeding from the corner of her mouth, struggled to stand up. She used the sword in her hand to support her body. She stared at Misaki Kimura with her swollen eyes, wishing she could cut him into pieces. Nieching, who was dressed in snow-white clothes, bent down and hugged Baihu, who was crying. He gently stroked Baihu's fur and frowned. Woo! Woo! Baihu whimpered to Nieching as she turned to look at Yi Fan, who was lying on the ground. Tears flowed from her clear eyes like pearls from a broken necklace. I know everything you said. Nieching nodded to Baihu. As the Thousand Demons Hall Master, he had thousands of demons under his command. Naturally, he knew the language of all beasts. Xiao Zhao's fox language was simple for him. Can you still walk? Nieching turned around and asked Akatsuki. Me? Akatsuki stared blankly for a moment before nodding with a determined look in her eyes. Sure, that's good, Nieching said as she slowly walked in front of Akatsuki and handed Baihu to Akatsuki. There's a cave not far ahead. Take Xiao Zhao and wait for me there. But Yi Fan, Akatsuki choked with sobs as she looked at Yi Fan's corpse. Just take care of Xiao Zhao. Leave the rest to me, Nieching said calmly to Akatsuki. The sobbing Yu Hongji nodded. She reached out and took the white fox from Nieching's hands. Then, she leapt into the distance. After watching Akatsuki leave, Nieching slowly walked to Yi Fan's corpse. She bent down and picked up Yi Fan, then turned around and prepared to leave. Stop right there. Misaki Kimura's strange voice rang out behind Nieching. Nieching stopped in her tracks and did not move. Leave this brat's head behind, and you can leave, Misaki Kimura, who was dressed in yellow robes, said coldly. He was the one who killed him so naturally, the credit was also his. Only by bringing back Yi Fan's head would the mission be considered complete. Only then would the Demon King be truly relieved. The incident with Inchan Daxiong last time was a lesson. That gecko demon had thought that Yi Fan was already dead. In the end, it was killed by Yi Fan in one move, and its 1,000-year-old inner core escaped. This time, he had to make sure nothing went wrong. If Nieching could save this brat surnamed Yi, then wouldn't his efforts have been in vain? I'm on a good mood today. Don't force my hand, Nieching said calmly with her back to the three demons. Ahaha. Misaki Kimura laughed sinisterly. I'm in a good mood today. Don't ruin my mood. Nieching, who was carrying Yi Fan's corpse, slowly turned around and looked coldly at Misaki Kimura. Misaki Kimura stared back at Nieching with his long and narrow eyes, his face full of provocation. Nieching narrowed her eyes and then opened them again. Boom! Following a loud bang, a red light screen suddenly rose from the ground 3 feet in front of Nieching and soared into the sky. Crash! A large amount of rubble poured down from the sky, as if it was raining stones. As the dust settled, a 1 foot wide and over 10 feet long trench appeared on the ground. The trench was several feet deep and slender. It was extremely eye-catching. The three demons' expressions immediately darkened, and they frowned when they saw this. Qing was able to produce such a domineering force with just her eyes. She was really not simple. This is the yin-yang life and death line. Qing, who was hugging Yi Fan's corpse by the waist, said calmly as she slowly turned around. Those who do not cross this line will live in the world of the living. Those who cross this line will die in the world of the dead. As Qing spoke, she slowly walked away with Yi Fan in her arms. The two divine weapons, Han Long and Li Hua, hovered on either side of Yi Fan. The yin-yang life and death line? Ha ha ha. After hearing Qing's words, Misaki Kimura, who was wearing a yellow robe, laughed strangely. You want to scare me? Misaki Kimura with a mere trench? What a joke. Clang! The dragon roared, and the yellow light appeared again. Misaki Kimura pulled out the Shura saber in his hand again. He held the saber with both hands and raised it above his head. Flames soared into the sky once again. Qing, who was holding Yi Fan, continued to walk forward. It was as if she was completely indifferent to everything that was happening behind her. Azura's 9 slashes his second form, Azura's evil wind slash. With a low roar from Misaki Kimura, the Azura saber in his hand soared into the sky and slashed down. Shwa! A giant golden saber arc was suddenly released from Misaki Kimura's path of Azura. The saber arc was over 70 feet long, and it was filled with golden light. The saber chi swept out as it charged at Qing. The saber arc was so fast that it created a sharp sound, as if the air was being sliced apart. The Azura's 9 slashes second form, Evil Wind Slash, was much stronger than the first form, Light Shattering Slash. Misaki Kimura knew that Qing's cultivation far surpassed Yi Fan's, so he used the second form. But this time, Misaki Kimura's thoughts were too simple. Qing was not Yi Fan. His cultivation was not something the current Yi Fan could compare to. To be able to shock the 1,000 demons and create the 1,000 demon hall, it was impossible to do this without strength. Even Xietian had to be respectful to this person. How could Misaki Kimura be hurt in the slightest? Shwa! When the giant golden saber arc reached the yin-yang life and death line that Qing had released, it was like a clay ox entering the sea. It disappeared without a trace, not even making a single sound. The faces of the 3 demons fell. Misaki Kimura, holding the saber, was stunned in place. His eyes were wide open, as if he did not dare believe what had just happened. His Azura's evil wind slash had actually disappeared into thin air. This was the first time he had encountered something like this in his 2,000 years of life. Wong. The 3 demons looked at each other in blank dismay. While they were in disbelief, the golden saber arc that had disappeared suddenly appeared in front of Misaki Kimura, almost touching the tip of Misaki Kimura's nose. The saber arc was still the saber arc from before, but compared to before, the saber arc's direction was completely different. The golden saber arc illuminated Misaki Kimura's face of disbelief. Shwa! The evil wind slashed into Misaki Kimura's body. The golden saber arc came out of Misaki Kimura's back and whistled into a mountain peak behind the 3 of them, creating a giant explosion. Thump! Misaki Kimura's body fell to the ground. From his forehead to his legs, a golden saber arc shone brightly. Clang! The Azura's saber fell from his hand and fell to the side. At this time, his eyes were wide open, and his gaze was fixed. The evil smile from before was gone. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. Misaki Kimura was indeed worthy of being one of the 9 demons under Xietian's command. The moment the golden saber arc appeared in front of him, he used his unique technique to make his body transparent, allowing the saber arc to pass through his body without any hindrance. Just now, Yi Fan had dodged the attack of the Leaf Fire Sword in the same way. However, this scene came too quickly. Although he had barely dodged the attack, his own evil wind slash had still impacted his internal organs, causing him to be severely injured. Seeing that Misaki Kimura was severely injured, Yamamoto Sano and Takagura Maki immediately reached out to support him. This Nieching's cultivation was truly unfathomable. He could actually use the enemy's move to counterattack. The saber aura had already caused him to be this heavily injured. If he wanted to cross the yin and yang life and death line, wouldn't it be like Nieching said, his soul would fall into the yin world and he would die? The two demons finally understood why Xie Tian, with his heaven-defying cultivation, did not make a move. If Nieching was like this, then with the 10,000 Immortals Towers head by Sheng and the thousands of demons and ghosts under their command, they had the power to fight against Xie Tian. I don't want to kill today, so I'll leave you with your life. Nieching, who was holding Yi Fan, calmly said without turning his head. Next time, the saber aura won't appear at the tip of your nose, but rather inside your body. Once these words were said, Yamamoto Sano and Takagura Maki knit their brows in shock. Nieching had deliberately left Misaki Kimura alive this time. He could instantly transfer the enemy's move into the enemy's body. This Nieching was too terrifying. The heavily injured Misaki Kimura had blood flowing out of his mouth, and he didn't even have the strength to say a single word. Scram. Nieching slowly walked forward and spat out a single word. Yamamoto Sano and Takagura Maki looked at each other before picking up the Azura blade on the ground. They supported the unconscious Misaki Kimura and instantly disappeared into thin air. This mission had completely failed because of Nieching's appearance. Inside the cave, the red-eyed Akatsuki and the teary-eyed Baihu were anxiously waiting for Nieching to appear. The only hope of saving Yi Fan was Nieching. Akatsuki had heard Yi Fan say before that not only was Nieching's cultivation high, he was also skilled in alchemy. When Xiao Zhao turned from a fox into a human, it was because she had taken the 100-grass pill refined by Nieching. Since Nieching had this kind of ability, he must have a miracle pill to save Yi Fan. Hope was ignited in Akatsuki's heart. God above, please bless Yi Fan so that he can survive this disaster. I, Akatsuki, am willing to sacrifice my life. Akatsuki prayed silently. Whoosh! Akatsuki was silently channeling her spirit when Nieching, who was holding Yi Fan, suddenly appeared in the cave. Nieching's senpai. Akatsuki immediately shouted when she saw Nieching appear. Woo-woo! Baihu immediately jumped in front of Nieching and cried anxiously. Chapter 540. Senior Nya, you're saying that Buffon, Koen isn't dead? Akatsuki's eyes widened in shock upon hearing Nieching's words. His current physical body is already destroyed, but his true spirit has yet to leave his body. Nieching looked at Yi Fan, who was lying on a large rock dead. As long as we can restore Brother Shiyue's physical body, he will be able to come back to life. Senior Nya, your cultivation is profound. Please save him. Akatsuki begged Nieching. She could tell from Nieching's tone that Nieching could save Yi Fan. Woo! Woo! Baihu also cried out anxiously to Nieching. Don't worry, old Xie is my best friend. Since I'm here, I naturally won't sit by and do nothing. Nieching took out an exquisite jade gourd. The jade gourd was 3 inches in size and completely green. It was surrounded by the aura of treasures and glowed with a green light. It was obvious that it was no ordinary item. I have a blood bone pill here. For those who have died of serious injuries within 6 hours, after taking it, their blood and bones will be restored and their limbs regrown. As Nieching spoke, she reached out to open the emerald gourd and poured out a pill. The pill was the size of a soybean and was completely red. It emitted a dazzling red light and floated above Nieching's palm as it spun around. That's great, Akatsuki said to Nieching. Thank you, Senior Nya. This Nieching could indeed save Yi Fan's life. Baihu's eyes lit up when she heard this. Brother, you could still be saved. Woo! The white fox made a sound at Nieching Ming, as if expressing its gratitude. Don't thank me so quickly. I haven't finished speaking, Nieching said with the pill in her hand. Please speak, Senior, Akatsuki hurriedly said. Although my blood-bone pill is a miraculous pill, there are two conditions that must be met to bring someone back to life. Nieching said to Akatsuki. What conditions? Akatsuki asked anxiously. First, the deceased soul must still be present and have not left the body. Also, the deceased must have died less than 6 hours ago, Nieching explained. Once the 6 hours have passed, even if the blood and bones can be restored and the limbs can be regrown, you will only have a complete corpse. What's the second condition? Akatsuki asked. Yifan had died less than an hour ago, and Nieching had just said that Yifan's true spirit had yet to leave his body. The first condition had been completely fulfilled. She was now eager to know the second condition of taking the blood-bone pill. Secondly, if you want to take the blood-bone pill, you must use your blood as a guide. Nieching looked at Akatsuki. Using blood as a guide? Akatsuki frowned. All medicines need to be consumed with water, and the blood-bone pill will dissolve upon contact with water. Therefore, blood must be used as a guide, Nieching explained. Only by using blood to consume the blood-bone pill can it have the effect of reviving the dead. What kind of blood? Akatsuki asked Nieching. Human blood, Nieching replied. Living human blood. Akatsuki frowned. She was smart enough to understand that since Nieching placed so much importance on the second condition, he must have his reasons. What kind of living human blood do you need? Akatsuki asked. As long as it's living human blood. Of course, it must be a person's blood. Also, the stronger the spiritual energy, the faster the effect, Nieching said to Akatsuki. How much blood do you need? Akatsuki continued to ask. A lot, Nieching said. At least 3 liters. Akatsuki's expression immediately became serious. Normal people would become weak after losing 1 liter of blood. If they lost 1.5 liters, they would become dizzy and their vision would become blurry. If they lost 2 liters, their life would be in danger. Xiao Zhao and I are not human beings. We want to, but we can't, Nieching said to Akatsuki. In other words, only Akatsuki's blood could be used. Under the red veil, Akatsuki bit her lower lip and narrowed her eyes. Forget it. I'll think of another way. Nieching turned around and prepared to put the blood-bone pill back into the jade gourd. Senior Nya, use my blood, Akatsuki said calmly as she looked up at Nieching. Yifan was already dead. The sooner they tried to save him, the higher their chances of success. Nieching was stunned. He slowly turned around and looked at Akatsuki with a frown. He didn't expect Akatsuki to agree to this. Nieching reminded Yu Hongji, think carefully. Although you have a cultivation base, 3 liters of blood could very well cost you your life. As long as I can save Bufan, Kuan, anything is worth it. As Akatsuki spoke, she walked slowly to Yifan's corpse. She bent down and looked tenderly at Yifan, whose face was pale and whose mouth was bleeding. You've saved me so many times. This time, it's my turn to save you. This is all I can do. Yifan, Kuan, I'll either stay with you in my next life or never see you again. As Akatsuki thought to herself, she wiped the blood from Yifan's mouth with her sleeve. Nieching's eyes were locked, and he didn't say a word. Nieching, whose cultivation had reached the immortal realm, clearly heard the words in Yu Hongji's heart. What an affectionate woman. Brother Eldritch, you're so lucky. So many people are willing to give up everything for you. I really don't know how you're so lucky. Woo! Baihu Xiao Zhao sobbed and ran to Akatsuki. She bit onto Akatsuki's clothes and pulled back with all her might. 3 liters of blood would kill Akatsuki. Back when they were falling from the Hokusaro Peak, in order to protect its life, Yu Hongji had used her own body to shield it. Nieching couldn't let Akatsuki lose her life just to save Yifan. Akatsuki held Baihu in her arms and whispered in Baihu's ear, Xiao Zhao, I'll leave Yifan in your care from now on. When I die, remember to ask him to visit my grave more often. Whoosh! As Akatsuki spoke, she secretly gathered spiritual energy in her palm and exerted force on Baihu. Before the white fox in his arms could even make a sound, it fainted. Senior Nya, time is precious. Let's begin. As Akatsuki spoke, she gently placed the unconscious Baihu on the hay nearby and slowly walked to Yifan's corpse. Okay. Nieching took a deep breath and calmly replied. He held the blood-bone pill in his hand and walked to Yifan's corpse. Senior Nya, what should I do? Akatsuki asked Nieching. Give me your hand, Nieching said. Akatsuki rolled up her sleeves and handed her snow-white hand to Nieching. Are you sure? Nieching raised his head and asked Akatsuki. Akatsuki nodded. Whoosh! Nieching pointed his finger at Akatsuki's wrist and slit it. Crimson blood immediately gushed out from Yu Hongji's white and tender wrist. Slap! Nieching held Akatsuki's arm and directly placed the bleeding wound next to Yifan's lips. The blood flowed down Yifan's lips and into his mouth. Yu Hongji's eyes were filled with tenderness as she looked at Yifan, whose eyes were tightly shut. 2 streams of tears silently fell from her beautiful eyes. I'm leaving, Bufan-kun. In the future, there won't be anyone to make good food for you. You have to take good care of yourself and Xiao Zhao. When you rescue your wife, don't forget to tell me in front of her grave. If I'm in heaven, I'll definitely help you. Thinking to this point, Akatsuki revealed a smile under her veil. Perhaps Yifan would remember her after she died. He should. Being able to live in the heart of the man she loved was also a kind of happiness. Hearing the words in Akatsuki's heart, Nieching's brows furrowed even deeper. What was love in the world? It made people pledge their lives to each other. It was difficult to part with love and difficult to part with righteousness. This Japanese girl could be said to have displayed the 2 words righteousness to the extreme. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Akatsuki's face began to pale. After the time it took to burn half an incense stick, Akatsuki began to lose consciousness, and her expression became absent-minded. At this time, her face was pale, her lips were blue, her body was limp, and her eyelids were heavy, almost closing. Akatsuki bit the tip of her tongue, trying to keep her consciousness awake. She couldn't die now. She had to continue giving blood to Yifan. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, Akatsuki's tongue had completely lost feeling. She forced herself to stay conscious. Her chest felt stuffy, and even breathing took a lot of effort. Whoosh! Nieching lifted Akatsuki's wrist and used his finger to cut the wound. The wound on Akatsuki's wrist immediately stopped bleeding. Buzz! Nieching pushed the flashing red blood-bone pill into Yifan's mouth. A ball of red light slid into Yifan's body. As the pill entered his body, Yifan's internal organs began to rapidly recover. His shattered chi also began to gradually recover. Akatsuki used an extremely weak voice to ask Nieching, "Can I do work now?" Nieching frowned and replied, "Yes." "Then that's good." After Akatsuki finished speaking, her body went limp and slowly fell down. Yifan-kun, take care. In the last moment of her consciousness, Akatsuki said the last words to Yifan in her heart. Nieching frowned and walked over to Akatsuki's side. He bent down and used his finger to check her breathing. After checking, Nieching's heart skipped a beat. This woman is no longer breathing. Sigh. Nieching sighed. She formed a sword in her hand and gently tapped Yu Hongji's forehead. Buzz. A golden light instantly rose from Akatsuki's body and disappeared in an instant. Nieching carried Akatsuki by her waist and laid her down beside Yifan. What an ill-fated relationship. Nieching shook his head and sighed as he walked over to Baihu's side. He carried the unconscious Baihu and used his spiritual energy to wake Baihu up. Woo! When the dead Akatsuki entered Baihu's line of sight, Baihu, who had woken up, immediately rushed to Akatsuki's side and cried nonstop. Akatsuki, who was fine just a moment ago, had died while trying to save Yifan's life. Woo! Woo! Baihu cried out to Nieching. This is her love tribulation. I can't do anything about it, Nieching said calmly. Woo! Woo! Baihu cried again. Although she's dead now, she hasn't died yet. Nieching said to Baihu. I've sealed her 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls in her body and injected spiritual energy into her meridians to prevent her body from decomposing. This is all I can do. Woo, woo. Baihu whimpered and kept touching Akatsuki's hand with her head. But this time, Akatsuki didn't wake up. Xiao Zhao, this is for you. Nieching poured out a shining green pill from the emerald gourd in her arms and handed it to the white fox. Baihu, who was in tears, immediately looked up at Nieching. It's the 100 herb pill. Swallow it, and you'll be able to regain your human form, Nieching said to Baihu. The white fox looked at the 100 herb pill that was glowing with a green light in Nieching's hand. It then looked at the unconscious Yi Fan and slowly shook its head. After swallowing the 100 herb pill, she could indeed regain her human form, but she couldn't be with Yi Fan anymore. Yi Fan would definitely let her return to Pear Blossom Palace. She didn't want to go back. She wanted to stay by Yi Fan's side. Sigh. Nieching sighed and put away the 100 herb pill. Looking at the 2 people and 1 fox in front of her, Nieching smiled bitterly. Fate couldn't be forced. A debt of love had to be repaid with love. Her cultivation had reached the immortal realm, but she couldn't do anything about the karma of these 3 people. Your brother Yi will wake up very soon, and it's not convenient for me to meet him now, Nieching said to Baihu. I've already set up a barrier at the entrance of the cave. Other than the 3 of you, no one can enter or leave. Take care, I'll leave first. Woo! Baihu heard that Nieching was leaving and immediately jumped down from the bluestone, preparing to make Nieching stay. She wanted Nieching to help Yi Fan save Fujiwara no Chiko. But Nieching's movements were too fast. Before Baihu could open her mouth, Nieching's figure had already disappeared into thin air. Chapter 541. Drip, drip. It was the sound of water dripping. Yi Fan slowly opened his eyes. When his vision gradually cleared, he saw a familiar face looking at him with a mischievous smile. This person was none other than his other self in his body. This scene shocked Yi Fan so much that he immediately sat up from the ground and looked around. The bamboo forest swayed, but the ancient well was still there. A light wind blew, and the bamboo leaves rustled. He had come to this strange and quiet place again. You're awake? The other, Yi Fan, looked at the awakened Yi Fan with a pair of bloodshot eyes that shone with a red light. Didn't I die? Why am I here? Yi Fan frowned as he stood up and said, What? You were beaten to death again. Blood, Yi Fan teased. This is the 3rd time you've come here. Each time, you were beaten half to death. I really opened my eyes. Am I already dead? Yi Fan asked with a frown. What do you ask? Blood Yi Fan asked with a smile. If I'm not dead, let me return to my physical body. I have many things to do, Yi Fan said to the other Yi Fan. What if you're already dead? Blood Yi Fan asked with a smile. Then let me leave this place. I want to go to Matsumoto Takayoshi's evil cauldron to accompany Chiko, Yi Fan said calmly. After his last life and death experience, Yi Fan no longer cared about life and death. He just wanted to go to the evil cauldron to accompany his wife's 2 remaining souls as soon as possible. Thousands of demons and ghosts gathered there. His wife's true soul must have suffered a lot in there. You're quite open-minded. Blood Yi Fan laughed coldly. If you go to accompany your Chiko, then what about Xiao Zhao? What about Akatsuki? One of them sacrificed her natal core for you and lost her human body, while the other lost her life because of you. What? Are you going to abandon them? Exhausted? Yi Fan frowned when he heard that. What do you mean by exhausted? Blood Yi Fan's words puzzled him. To tell you the truth, your physical body was saved by Nieching, who rushed over after hearing the news. Blood-eyed Yi Fan turned around with his hands behind his back and calmly said, Nieching was going to use the blood-bone pill he refined to restore your physical body. Unfortunately, this blood-bone pill must be consumed with human blood. In order to save you, that Akatsuki sacrificed 3 liters of her blood and is no longer in this world. Blood Yi Fan's words were like a bolt from the blue, causing Yi Fan to freeze in place. Akatsuki was dead. in order to save him. This woman was even willing to give up her life. Yi Fan, who felt as if he had been struck by lightning, instantly went limp and fell to his knees with a thud. He held his head with both hands and grabbed his hair in pain. Tears flowed uncontrollably from his eyes. Another woman who loved him sincerely sacrificed her life for him. Yi Fan hated himself. He hated his own incompetence. He hated his own fate. His beloved wife, Fujiwara no Chiko, first lost her memories after being with him. Then her soul was separated and she suffered all kinds of pain. Even now, she was still crazy like a child. After his mother gave birth to him, she left home with tears in her eyes and no one knew where she went. After he reincarnated into the Yi family was stripped of their power by the imperial court. Their clansmen were hunted down and forced into exile. Xiao Zhao, in order to save him, sacrificed her life and became a fox. Qing Qinzi, in order to help him, did not hesitate to reveal the secrets of heaven and lose his immortal position. Now, even Akatsuki, in order to save his physical body, died. So many people suffered because of him. He was simply an inauspicious person. Destroy my primordial spirit. Yi Fan, whose face was filled with tears, raised his head and said to Blood, I Yi Fan in a daze. My life is a sin. I also don't want to enter this cycle of reincarnation. Once he died, his beloved wife's true soul would no longer have any value to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. With Matsumoto Takeyoshi's character, he would definitely not provoke Pear Blossom Palace. His beloved wife's true soul would definitely be released by him. With Jinshan's cultivation, retrieving his beloved wife's soul couldn't be easier. As for Xiao Zhao, Nieching would definitely not sit by and do nothing. His cultivation was extremely high, and he was an expert in refining spirit pills. Restoring Xiao Zhao's human form wouldn't be a difficult matter. As for the debt he owed to Akatsuki, he could only place his hopes on Qing Qinzi and the little Taoist boy. The two of them were profound in the Tao and could predict the future. They would definitely be able to release Akatsuki and let her be reborn as a human in her next life. He was really a jinx. As long as he was destroyed, everything would be resolved. Destroy your primordial spirit? All right, I'll fulfill your wish. When Blood Yi Fan heard Yi Fan's words, he was instantly unable to restrain his anger. He suddenly turned around and stared at Yi Fan, who was in a daze with a pair of bloodshot eyes. Following which, he swiftly kicked Yi Fan's chest. Bang! Yi Fan's body was sent flying into the air by this kick. Swoosh! While Yi Fan was still in midair, Blood Yi Fan's figure instantly appeared below Yi Fan. He lifted his leg and bent his knee. Using his knee joint, he viciously struck Yi Fan's lower back. Bang! Yi Fan, who was in midair, was instantly sent flying into the air. Swoosh! While Yi Fan's figure was still in the air, Blood Yi Fan instantly appeared in midair again. Following which, his figure flashed and quickly descended from the sky. Bang! Blood-eyed Yi Fan, who was descending from the sky, once again kicked Yi Fan's chest. Yi Fan's figure immediately arched and fell to the ground at high speed like a cannonball. Boom! Dust flew everywhere and the ground shook. Yi Fan was directly kicked to the ground by Blood-Eye Yi Fan, creating a huge crater that was more than 10 feet deep. Yi Fan, who was in the crater, had messy hair and blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. His entire body was in unbearable pain, as if all his bones had been torn apart. Whoosh! Blood-Eye Yi Fan, who was in midair, immediately descended from midair. Bang! Blood-Eye Yi Fan's feet stepped on Yi Fan's chest. Yi Fan's body sank another 3 feet. Pooh! Yi Fan spat out a mouthful of blood. I'll destroy your primordial spirit first. Then I'll take over your body. The blood-eyed Yi Fan, who was standing on Yi Fan's chest, slowly squatted down. He used his pair of red eyes to stare at Yi Fan, who was in unbearable pain. He opened his mouth and laughed sinisterly. With the Xian Tian secret mantra and the proud Moon Heavenly Scriptures mantra, breaking through the 3 seals won't be difficult. Don't worry, I'll save your wife because I'll grow old with her. Blood-Eye Yi Fan laughed maniacally as he spoke. However, Yi Fan, who was at his feet, was not as furious as he had imagined. On the contrary, he revealed a smile while his mouth was full of blood. "What are you laughing at?" Blood-eyed Yi Fan suddenly stood up and stepped on Yi Fan's forehead. He said in a cold voice. Yi Fan, whose head had been stepped on and whose teeth were stained red with blood, laughed. "Then I'll have to trouble you to take care of her for me. You don't believe me?" Blood-Eye Yi Fan roared as he exerted force with his feet, causing Yi Fan's head to sink into the ground. "You wouldn't do that," Yi Fan, who was spitting out blood, said under Blood-Eye Yi Fan's feet. "Oh, is that so?" Blood-Eye Yi Fan laughed sinisterly as he stepped on Yi Fan's forehead. "You are not evil energy," Yi Fan, whose head was in the ground, stuttered. This was what Yi Ming had said to him personally on Eagle's distress peak. When Blood-Eye Yi Fan heard Yi Fan say this, he immediately removed his feet from Yi Fan's body and grabbed Yi Fan by the collar, pulling Yi Fan in front of him. He stared into Yi Fan's eyes. His blood-red eyes seemed to be burning with flames. However, even so, he did not say a single word. "Who are you?" Yi Fan, who was grabbed by the collar, looked at Blood-Eye Yi Fan and asked calmly. Bang! Blood-Eye Yi Fan pushed Yi Fan to the ground and turned around. "How am I not evil energy?" Blood-Eye Yi Fan said. "You can't completely believe that demonic blade," Yi Ming's words. "Let me ask you," Yi Fan said as he struggled to get up from the ground. "When we met that blue-clothed man in the cave, you wanted me to agree to let you out so that you could control my body, right?" "That's right." Blood-Eye Yi Fan, whose back was facing Yi Fan, said, "My mission is to protect your body. I can only appear when you allow it or when your body is about to be destroyed. In that case, let me ask you. When I killed that dog official, why did you take over my body?" Yi Fan asked. "I was just itching for a fight. Why can't I?" Blood-Eye Yi Fan said with a smile. "Okay, then let me ask you," Yi Fan said as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "When I died in the Lingyun cave, why didn't you appear? You have a deep relationship with that Baihu. Giving up her inner core to save you was her fate." "I could not interfere," Blood-Eye Yi Fan said. "If you don't believe me, you can ask Jin Chan and Tian Kinzi. Then why didn't you appear when I was killed by that monster?" Yi Fan asked again. "You don't believe me when I say you're stupid," Blood-Eyed Yi Fan said as he turned around. "Before the two of you started fighting, Nieqing was already by your side. With him around, why would I interfere?" "Nieqing was already here?" Yi Fan frowned when he heard this. Those three demons were not sent by Xie Tian. They were secretly ordered by the Demon King of 9 Demon to take your life, Blood-Eye Yi Fan said. Nieqing rushed over from the East Ocean continent when he found out that 9 Demon was missing 3 people. The reason why he did not help you was to increase your combat experience and let you know that there is always someone better than you. The second reason was that Akatsuki's love tribulation had arrived. He could not interfere rashly, so he did not make a move. "All right, even if all of this is true, let me ask you something." Yi Fan thought for a moment before continuing. "If you really were evil, you could have destroyed my primordial spirit in one move. Why did you only let me suffer and not kill me?" Blood-Eye Yi Fan was stunned by Yi Fan's question. "You have been trying to provoke me, haven't you?" Yi Fan asked. "No," Blood-Eye Yi Fan said coldly. He flicked his sleeves and turned around. "Okay, let's continue," Yi Fan said. "Destroy my primordial spirit. Be happy." "I changed my mind," Blood-Eye Yi Fan said. "Oomph," Yi Fan laughed coldly. "Since it's like this, I'll be a good person until the end. Didn't you say that you could leave as long as you had my permission?" I agreed. "You can leave now. I'll give you this body." Blood-Eye Yi Fan's body trembled, but he did not say anything. "Go," Yi Fan said with a smile. Blood-Eye Yi Fan still did not say anything. "What? You don't want to leave?" Yi Fan said with a smile. "Haven't you always wanted to get my body?" Blood-Eye Yi Fan turned his head to look at Yi Fan, then turned his head again. "Those 3 seals weren't used to suppress you, right?" Yi Fan asked with his head lowered. Blood-Eye Yi Fan suddenly turned around and looked at Yi Fan in shock and disbelief. "Back then, you purposely took over my mind and attacked Father and Chico. You did this to make me believe that you were the evil energy in my body, right? As Yi Fan spoke, he raised his head and stared at blood-eyed Yi Fan as he calmly asked, Buzz! Blood-eyed Yi Fan's glowing red eyes instantly returned to normal. Sigh. It looks like I can't hide this from you. Yi Fan sighed. Yi Ming was right. I'm not some evil energy. Then who are you? Yi Fan asked. Chapter 542. A Wisp of a Soul Essence. Yi Fan frowned when he heard that. He was alarmed. He never expected the him in front of him to have such an identity. I believe you already know that everything that is happening now is within the control of your previous life, said Yi Fan. Back then, Eldritch separated a wisp of his soul essence and sealed it in your consciousness. That wisp of soul essence is me. Why'd he do that? Asked Yi Fan. Of course, he did that to protect you, said Yi Fan. Protect me, retorted Yi Fan. In your previous life, you were neither good nor evil. You were unruly and unrestrained. Although you made many friends, you also offended many people with high cultivation levels. That Taoist silver pole was only the tip of the iceberg, said Yi Fan as he paced. These enemies of yours have waited for you for more than 300 years for revenge. Now, their cultivation levels are so high that it's not something you can imagine. Forgive me for being blunt, but other than Tian Long, Yi Ming, and Yi Feng, no one in the Yi family can stop them. Yi Feng? Yi Fan suddenly found the name familiar, as though he had heard it somewhere before. Don't your Yi family's ancestral mansion have portraits of the past heads of the family? Said Yi Fan with a smile. This Yi Feng is the 18th head of the Yi family. However, he didn't die. Instead, he cultivated to become a sword immortal. Sword immortal? Yi Fan's eyes widened when he heard that. He never expected the Yi family to have a sword immortal in the form of Yi Ming other than fiendish saber Yi Ming. That's right. In the Yi family, there's a saber and a sword, a fiendish and an immortal. Demonic saber Yi Ming, sword immortal Yi Feng. As for sword immortal Yi Ming, he has roamed the world ever since he became a sword immortal. He has hidden himself and no longer interferes with the affairs of the mortal world. The three of them have heaven-defying cultivations, but none of them are able to help you directly. Although you seem to have lived a peaceful life for the past 20 years or so, danger lurks at every turn. Many top experts wish to take your life. If not for me secretly protecting you, you probably wouldn't have even lived past your first month. After Yi Fan heard this, he remained silent. There were too many things that he didn't know. In his previous life, Eldritch's plot was too big, spanning over 300 years. Even the current him was unable to guess his intentions from his previous life. As for the evil aura in your body, there is indeed it, and it's quite powerful. Yi Fan continued. Ever since you obtained your cultivation base, this power has been restless. It will increase with your cultivation base and gradually erode your spirit platform. Back then, you taught your brother Yi Qiu how to seal evil aura and instructed him to seal the evil aura in your body when you were born. This was so that you could learn the principles of human relations, loyalty, righteousness, and etiquette like a normal child. This would allow you to use your own morality to restrain the evil aura when it overflows in the future. Since you are a wisp of eldritch soul, you must know everything about his plot, right? Yi Fan asked. If that's really the case, why would I try to goad you into action just now? Yi Fan retorted. Yi Fan was stumped by the question. I'm just a wisp of eldritch soul. I'm not even 1/10,000th of his entire soul. How can I know everything? Yi Fan said. Then what should I do now? Yi Fan asked. I can't answer this question. Yi Fan said. Even an immortal like Qing Qinzi couldn't predict your future, let alone me. Yi Fan fell silent again. Now that your body is almost recovered, you should quickly leave this place to save your wife and Akatsuki, Yi Fan reminded him. Hong Ji can still be saved? Yi Fan's eyes lit up as he asked in surprise. Even though she's dead, her soul has been sealed in Nie Qing's body. Yi Fan smiled at him. Nie Qing even injected spiritual energy into her body to prevent her body from decaying. Don't tell me you still can't guess why he did that? Yifan was overjoyed when he heard this. Akatsuki could still be saved. Otherwise, Niechin definitely wouldn't have done that. How can I save Hongji? Yifan asked anxiously. Find someone who's willing to give her blood and use spiritual energy to open up all her meridians. Then, she'll be able to come back to life, Yifan said. Yifan nodded resolutely. It's about time. You should leave, Yifan said as he waved his sleeve at Yifan. Yifan instantly felt the world spin around him. When he opened his eyes, he realized that he had returned to reality. Woo! Woo! Seeing that Yifan had come back to life, Baihu immediately rushed to Yifan's side as if she had gone crazy. She passionately licked Yifan's face with her tongue. Xiao Xiao, Yifan said as he struggled to sit up on the limestone. He asked, Where's Hongji? Baihu turned her head and looked at Yifan's side. Yifan immediately followed Baihu's gaze. Hongji, Yifan immediately shouted when he saw Akatsuki beside him. She was not breathing and her eyes were tightly shut. He grabbed Akatsuki's hand as hot tears flowed down his face uncontrollably. Akatsuki's hand was cold to the touch, and there was no trace of blood on it. On her wrist, there was a ghastly wound. Hongji, Yifan called out Akatsuki's name as he leaned on the corpse and cried. He cried for an entire 2 hours before he gradually stopped. Hongji, don't worry. I will definitely save you. Yifan wiped his tears as he took off his white robe and gently covered Akatsuki's body. After speaking, Yifan began to sit cross-legged as he checked his body's condition. Niechin's blood-bone pill was indeed powerful. At this moment, other than his lack of spiritual energy, everything else had returned to normal. Yifan closed his eyes and began to condense his spiritual energy. Without spiritual energy in his body, there was nothing he could do. He had already cultivated to the 2nd level of the mysterious sky secret manual, Rock Shattering Heaven, so it was not difficult for him to condense his spiritual energy again. After 2 hours, Yifan had already recovered 50% of his spiritual energy. Although it was only 50%, it was enough for now. Hongji, let's go. Yifan's eyes were red as he placed Baihu on his shoulder. Then, he carried Akatsuki's corpse and slowly walked out of the cave. Whoosh! Yifan recited the immortal mantra and used the cloud riding technique. He instantly jumped onto the clouds and quickly flew towards the East Sea. At this moment, the sun was setting in the west, and the setting sun was as red as blood. Yifan, who was carrying Akatsuki, separated 2 streams of spiritual energy from his body. One blocked in front of Baihu, who was on his shoulder, and the other in front of Akatsuki. Because Akatsuki was protected by Niechin's spiritual energy, her body was still soft, as if she had fallen asleep in Yifan's embrace. Yifan's eyes were filled with tears as he allowed the cold air to crazily slap his face. After an hour, Yifan arrived at the shore of the East Sea and was above the warship. Whoosh! Yifan's figure instantly appeared outside Matsumoto Takayoshi's cabin. Bang! Before the 2 ninjas outside Matsumoto Takayoshi's cabin could react, the red-eyed Yifan kicked the cabin door. Boom! How could the thick cabin door withstand his kick? It instantly flew upside down. At this time, Matsumoto Takayoshi was drinking tea in the cabin. He did not expect Yifan to barge in like this. Before he could recover from his shock, the huge cabin door came crashing down on him. Whoosh! In a flash, a sword light flashed, and the huge cabin door flying towards Matsumoto Takayoshi was instantly split into 2 and scattered on both sides. A man in white with a veil on his face stood silently in front of Matsumoto Takayoshi, holding a glowing white blade. The moment Yifan fell from the sky, he felt a murderous aura. He did not have time to think. He immediately used his movement technique and blocked in front of Matsumoto Takayoshi. Yifan hugged Akatsuki and strode into the cabin. Yifan-kun, what are you doing? Matsumoto Takayoshi stood up from the futon. His face was ashen as he asked this. He did not know why Yifan would suddenly fall out with him. Xiation's 3 subordinates wanted to kill me on the way here. Did you know about this matter beforehand? Yifan's red-rimmed eyes stared at Matsumoto Takeyoshi as he asked this. The three demons wanted to kill you on the way? Matsumoto Takeyoshi was stunned when he heard this. Then he frowned and was shocked. He seemed to understand what had happened from Yifan's words. Yagyu-ryuk, not killing Yifan, had already made the Japanese impatient. But sending the three demons to kill Yifan was not Xietian style. He would at least send someone to inform him and would not act rashly. It seemed like there was a mystery behind this matter. Matsumoto Takeyoshi thought in his heart. The white-clothed person holding the battle blade heard Yifan's words and his brows knit. The 9 demons were all heaven-defying experts, and they had all been personally taught by Xietian. The 3 demons working together actually couldn't kill Yifan? This made him a bit confused. I'm asking you, did you know about this beforehand? Yifan coldly said, I did not know about this matter. Matsumoto Takeyoshi replied. Yifan narrowed his eyes as he looked at Matsumoto Takeyoshi, but he did not say a word. If I knew about this beforehand, why would I let Akatsuki go with you? Matsumoto Takeyoshi knew that Yifan was doubting him, so he opened his mouth to explain. Yifan thought for a bit after hearing this. Then he turned around and carried Akatsuki out the door. With a single jump, he flew back to his boat. Matsumoto Takeyoshi was right. If he really knew about this beforehand, he would not have let Akatsuki go with him. It seemed like he did not know about this matter. After returning to the boat, Yifan placed Akatsuki in the cabin and then placed his palm on Akatsuki's chest. Then he used the pill circulation technique to move the cold energy from the ice core in his body. Wong. A cold white light came out of Yifan's palm and slowly poured onto Akatsuki's body. The white light instantly wrapped around Akatsuki layer by layer. Gugung bong bong. With a series of crisp sounds, a giant crystal-clear ice coffin suddenly appeared. Inside the ice coffin, Akatsuki with a red veil was silently lying inside. Hongji, wait for me, Yifan said as he turned to walk out the cabin door. After using his spiritual energy to create a barrier around the boat, Yifan used his movement technique and charged into the sky, instantly disappearing. Chapter 543. Above the clouds, the red-eyed Yifan urged the auspicious clouds beneath his feet, rushing straight in the direction of the capital. The sun had already set in the west, and the sky was gradually darkening. Within Yikong, there were a few faint stars that constantly flickered. At this time, it was the time for a flock of birds to return to their nests. There were quite a few birds that he didn't know the names of flying flocks under his auspicious clouds, letting out bursts of bird cries. Looking at the flocks of birds flying by under his feet, listening to the cheerful cries of the birds returning to their nests, Yifan felt a trace of desolation and loneliness on the auspicious clouds. He suddenly felt that he was inferior to these flocks of birds. The flocks of birds accompanied their loved ones, flying side by side, searching for food at sunrise and returning to their nests at sunset. It was simple and happy. But what about him? Every step he took was difficult, and every step he took was filled with killing intent. Almost no one who followed him had a good ending. He and his beloved wife had closed their doors, not caring about the affairs of the world. In the end, his wife had gone crazy and her soul was incomplete. In order to give Xiao Zhao a good future, he had recommended her to enter the Pear Blossom Palace, hoping that she would return to the righteous path in the future. In the end, she had lost her inner core and fallen into the body of a fox. In order to not let Matsumoto Takeyoshi find out that Akatsuki was helping him, he had protected Akatsuki at every turn, contending with Matsumoto Takeyoshi in secret. In the end, Akatsuki had sacrificed her own blood for him and passed away. He had done his best, but in the end, he had received a merciless blow. Heaven and earth were heartless, treating all living things like straw dogs. Since his efforts had not received the blessings of heaven, then what was the point of him holding on to this laughable morality? Thinking of this, Yifan's eyes shone with a trace of red light. Perhaps he still didn't know that more than half of his spiritual altar had been invaded by the evil aura. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Yi Fan's auspicious clouds arrived above a green mountain. This was the place Li Si had told him to stay, Mount Jinping. Looking at this mountain range, the cliffs were cut into peaks, the dense forests and waterfalls could be vaguely seen. It was indeed a good place for cultivation. Yi Fan lowered the height of the auspicious clouds under his feet and slowly walked between the mountains. At the same time, he used his 5 senses to search for Li Si's specific location. This mountain was already deserted, and in addition to the steep peaks, there were not many people at all. Finding Li Si was a piece of cake. With his sharp 5 senses, Yi Fan quickly sensed Li Si's turbid spiritual aura. He pushed the auspicious clouds under his feet and flew directly in the direction of the aura. At this moment, Li Si was sitting cross-legged in the cave. Suddenly, he heard the cries of the red-crowned crane that was eating wild fruits beside him. Hearing this cry, Li Si, who was meditating, immediately opened his eyes. After calculating with his fingers, Li Si's face lit up with joy. He immediately stood up and walked quickly to the entrance of the cave. When he arrived at the entrance of the cave, Yi Fan, who was dressed in white, had just landed on the ground with his auspicious clouds. Li Si greets Mr. Yi. When Li Si saw Yi Fan, he immediately cupped his hands and bowed to Yi Fan. Master Li, Yi Fan returned the greeting. Mr. Yi, please come in. Li Si extended his hand toward the entrance of the cave and said. Yi Fan nodded and stepped into the cave. Li Si followed closely behind. This cave was quite spacious. It was more than 7 feet deep and more than 3 feet wide. It was not a problem at all to block out the wind and rain. There was a bonfire lit in the cave. Next to the bonfire was a thick straw mat. The elegant, snow-white red-crowned crane stood to the side, quietly looking at Yi Fan. This place is too shabby. Sorry for the inconvenience, Li Si said as he used his sleeve to brush the straw mat. Sir, please sit. This place is quite nice. It's quiet, Yi Fan said as he looked around and sat on the straw mat. Sure, quickly get some wild fruits for Sir, Li Si said to the white crane after sitting down on a green rock opposite Yi Fan. When the white crane heard Li Si's words, it immediately used its long and thin beak to pick up a branch full of wild fruits. It walked gracefully in front of Yi Fan and gently placed the branch in front of Yi Fan. Then, it lowered its head to bow to Yi Fan and slowly walked away. In the deep mountains, only these fruits can serve Sir. Sir, please don't be offended, Li Si said respectfully to Yi Fan. You're too kind, Master Li, Yi Fan said calmly. Mr. Yi, may I know why you're here in the middle of the night? Li Si saw that Yi Fan's eyes were red and his face was sad. It seemed like he had just cried, so he went straight to the point and asked, This time, I've come to visit you because of one thing. Yi Fan looked at Li Si and spat out 2 words, becoming a demon, bedevilment. Li Si's expression changed when he heard these 2 words. No matter what, he would never have thought that Yi Fan would come here for this matter. Master, please give me the mantra for bedevilment, Yi Fan said to Li Si. This. Li Si stuttered in shock. What's going on? The last time they met, Yi Fan personally told him that he would never be bedeviled. Now that they had not met for a few days, this young man actually came to ask for the mantra for the bedevilment. What kind of upheaval happened in the past few days to make him make such a decision? I can't say much about this. Master, you don't have to ask. Just give me the mantra, Yi Fan said. Mr. Yi, I told you last time that bedevilment is not a small matter. You have to reconsider. Master, Yi Fan interrupted Li Si. I've made up my mind. You don't have to persuade me anymore. Li Si was stunned. He frowned and didn't say anything. He had already committed a grave mistake and was punished by the heavens, causing his lifespan to decrease drastically. If he were to impart the mantra of the bedevilment mantra to Yi Fan, perhaps he would be punished by the heavens and die a violent death. Mr. Yi, I can't give you the mantra. Forgive me for not being able to do that. Li Si looked up at Yi Fan and said resolutely. As he said this, his eyes unnaturally glanced at the stone wall behind Yi Fan. Yi Fan, with his sharp senses, caught Li Si's gaze. If he didn't guess wrong, the mantra for the bedevilment cultivation method was in the stone wall behind him. I, Li Si, am a sinner. I can't add to my crimes, Li Si said to Yifan. Please forgive me. If that's the case, then I can only offend you. As Yifan spoke, he instantly activated the cold air within the ice core in his body and threw a palm strike at Li Si from afar. Whoosh! A 3-inch thick white beam of light shot out from Yifan's palm and went straight for Li Si. Crack, crack, bang! Before Li Si could even react, a huge, semicircular ice barrier instantly enveloped him. The ice shield was 10 feet wide and crystal clear. Cold smoke came out of it. The red-crowned crane, which was leisurely eating wild fruits, saw that its master was bound and immediately cried out. It flapped its huge wings and used its long and sharp beak to stab Yifan. At this moment, the white crane was eager to protect its master. Its body rose from the ground at an extremely fast speed. However, even the 1,000-year-old ice snake couldn't do anything to Yifan. How could a mere white crane be a match for Yifan? Seeing the red-crowned crane coming for him, Yifan gathered spiritual energy in his hand and shook it at the red-crowned crane. Bam! The white crane was stunned by Yifan's spiritual energy and fell heavily to the ground. Mr. Yi, what are you doing? Bam, bam, bam. Li Si, who was inside the ice shield, said loudly to Yifan as he hit the steel-like ice shell with all his might. Taoist, forgive Yifan for being rude, but I must get the mantra, Yifan said as he turned to look at the stone wall behind him. Mr. Yi, you can't. Li Si immediately understood Yifan's intention and shouted loudly. Yifan didn't reply. He closed his eyes and slowly extended his right hand. He opened his 5 fingers and began to use his invisible spiritual energy to investigate the stone wall from top to bottom. It didn't take long before Yifan sensed a half-foot square stone wall on the stone wall. Found it! Whoosh! Yifan suddenly opened his eyes and bent his 5 fingers into claws. Bam! There was a loud noise and rocks flew everywhere. Ha! A bamboo scroll flew out from the stone wall and landed in Yifan's hand. The bamboo scroll was sealed with wax and wrapped in oilcloth. On the oilcloth, there was an ancient seal that said demon. Mr. Yi, you can't do this, you can't do this. Li Si, who was inside the ice shield, hit the ice shell crazily and shouted loudly. Once you become a demon, it's too late for regrets. Don't worry, Taoist. I won't regret it. Yifan said calmly and slowly walked to the unconscious white crane. He bent down and used his spiritual energy to heal the white crane. Li Si closed his eyes in pain and slowly shook his head. My agreement with you won't change. When I get the 9 Cauldrons mystic technique in the future, I'll definitely remove the seal and rebuild your brain. After the white crane slowly opened its eyes, Yifan stood up and walked to the ice shield. As he spoke, he hit the crystal-clear ice shield with his palm. Bam! Ice shards scattered everywhere and sparkled. Amidst the ice shards, Yifan used his movement technique. A shadow rushed out of the cave and into the sky. Heaven's will, heaven's will. Li Si sat on the ground and sighed to the sky. After leaving Jade Screen Mountain, Yifan pushed the auspicious clouds under his feet to the maximum and went straight to his cave abode, Soaring Cloud Cave on Phoenix Cry Mountain. The next thing he had to do was to enter the demonic path. In order to reach the 3rd level of Shintian secret technique, one had to undergo the heavenly tribulation. Proud Moon heavenly scripture could only be cultivated once a year. When he reached the 3rd level of full moon scripture, he also had to undergo the heavenly tribulation. Now, if he wanted to obtain powerful strength without having to worry about the heavenly tribulation, this was the only way. With the power of the demonic path, not only could he break the barrier of the godly cauldron, he could also be invincible in a battle between experts. Yagyu Ryuk, Yamamoto Seino, Mitsuaki Kimura, Daitengu, these experts' strength was far beyond his imagination. With only the 1st level of Proud Moon heavenly scripture and the 2nd level of Shintian secret technique, he was no match for them. If he had chosen to enter the demonic path earlier, Akatsuki wouldn't have died because of him. Thinking about the wound on Akatsuki's wrist, Yifan painfully closed his eyes. After half an hour, Yifan arrived at the cave abode he hadn't returned to for a long time, Soaring Cloud Cave. This time, he didn't open the cave door. Instead, he went directly to the full moon pavilion above the cave abode. At this time, it was already late at night. Yikong. The moon was bright and the stars were shining brightly. A cool breeze was blowing in the full moon pavilion. Yifan sat down on a stone bench in the pavilion. He took out a bamboo scroll from his chest and tore off the demonic path seal. He removed the wax seal and slowly spread the bamboo scroll on the stone table. On the bamboo scroll, the ancient script was densely packed. The handwriting was crazy and unrestrained. At the very front of the text, 4 wild and unrestrained words entered Yifan's eyes. Chapter 544. In the full moon pavilion, Yifan was calmly reading the demonization mantra on the bamboo scroll. The entire demonic mantra had close to 1,000 words. Most of the words were about the taboos, the power obtained, and various things to take note of. The actual mantra was less than 100 words. After memorizing the mantra, Yifan rolled up the bamboo scroll and held it in his hand. Then he activated the fire Dragon Ball in his body. Bang! As a flame rose in Yifan's hand, the demonic mantra bamboo scroll in his hand burned fiercely. In an instant, it turned into sparks and scattered with the wind. If this demonic mantra fell into the hands of others in the future, there would be endless troubles. It could not be left in this world. Yifan clapped his hands and immediately mobilized his spirit energy to set up 3 barriers around the full moon pavilion. The first one was the Fire Dragon Ball barrier. The second one was the Ice Core barrier. The third one was the 5 colors barrier. After setting up the 3 powerful barriers, Yifan sat cross-legged in the full moon pavilion. He closed his eyes and focused his mind. In his heart, he began to silently recite the mantra recorded in the demonic mantra. Buzz. As Yifan's silent recitation of the mantra gradually came to an end, a black flame instantly rose up around his body. The black flame shone brightly. It was 3 feet tall and emitted a buzzing sound. What was even more inconceivable was that the shape of the black flame was actually an ancient seal word, demon. All laws follow the heart. Only demons reign supreme. Yifan recited the last 2 lines of the mantra in his heart. Buzz. When he finished reciting the mantra, a dazzling white light flashed in front of Yifan's eyes. The white light was so intense that it hurt Yifan's eyes. He subconsciously closed his eyes and turned his head. The white light appeared in an instant and disappeared in an instant. Yifan turned his head and slowly opened his eyes. The scene in front of him made Yifan frown. At this moment, he was surrounded by a white light. Yifan slowly stood up and looked around. There was no sky, no earth, nothing. All around Zhou Quan was a vast expanse of whiteness. He knew in his heart that his primordial spirit was now in the gap between the human realm and the devil realm. If he wanted to reach the demonic realm, he had to pass through this space. With a thought, Yifan slowly rose 3 feet into the air and flew forward at high speed. It was recorded in the demonic book that at the intersection of the human and demonic worlds, all telekinesis would become reality. Here, if you wanted money, mountains of gold would appear in front of you. If you wanted beauties, celestial beauties would appear in front of you. If you wanted to be an emperor, a dragon pavilion with 3,000 beauties would appear in front of you. If you wanted to fly, you would soar into the sky and roam the void. In short, you could get whatever you want here, because there were many desires in their hearts. Many people who had fallen into the devil realm were mesmerized by the beauty of the mountains of gold in front of them before they reached the devil realm. They no longer had the confidence they had when they first arrived here. There was only one result, and that was that the primordial spirit would sink deeper and deeper, so much so that the physical body left in the human realm would rot and turn into white bones. Because this was the gap between the human realm and the devil realm. There would be no messengers of hell coming here to capture souls. So once the physical body was destroyed, the primordial spirit that remained here would quickly dissipate and eventually turn into white light. Yi Fan, Yi Fan. Not long after Yi Fan flew, Fujiwara no Chiko appeared not far away. Her eyes were filled with tears, and her face was full of surprise and joy. She waved her hands and shouted at Yi Fan. The longing in Yi Fan's heart began to materialize. Looking at the image of his beloved wife in the distance, Yi Fan closed his eyes and made up his mind. He used his telekinesis to raise his body by 3 feet and whizzed over Fujiwara no Chiko's head. Yi Fan, Yi Fan. Fujiwara no Chiko's voice became more and more distant until there was no more sound. Yi Fan opened his eyes, took a deep breath, and continued to fly forward. Brother Yi, Brother Yi. Just as he opened his eyes, Xiao Zhao's figure appeared in the air, not far away from him. Xiao Zhao was wearing a pink dress. Her face was full of joy as she stepped on the void and flew toward Yi Fan at high speed. Yi Fan gritted his teeth and instantly accelerated. Whoosh! Yi Fan and Xiao Zhao brushed past each other in an instant. Brother Yi, are you not going to care about me anymore? Xiao Zhao's shouts came from behind. Yi Fan painfully covered his ears with both hands and continued to charge forward. Whoosh! Just as Yi Fan was in great pain, the red-clothed Akatsuki instantly appeared in front of Yi Fan. Her skin was pale, her beautiful eyes were wide open, and blood was dripping from her wrist. Buffon-kun. Akatsuki called out Yi Fan's name in a gentle and ethereal voice. With a single thought, Yi Fan's fire sword, which glowed with a red light and raging flames, instantly appeared in his hand. The two divine weapons had already connected with each other, and the sword spirit had already followed Yi Fan here. Yi Fan's eyes were red as he yelled and slashed his sword toward Akatsuki. At this time, he had to stay awake and not fall into an illusion. No matter who appeared in front of him, he couldn't be reluctant to leave. Whoosh! The sword light of the mythical flame sword instantly shattered Yu Hongji's body into pieces. She turned into a series of afterimages and disappeared without a trace. In the next half an hour, familiar and close people appeared one after another. Father Yi Kong, Grandfather Yi Yun, Jin Shan, Yi Feishue, Succubus, Cui Ziwen, Yi Ming, Qing Chenzi, and even Brother Kim appeared in front of him. Facing these illusions, Yi Fan only did one thing, and that was to kill them. Although he knew that everything in front of him was an illusion, every time he swung his sword, he had to endure great pain in his heart. After swinging his sword more than 10 times, the illusion in front of him completely disappeared. 100 feet in front of him, a huge black stone door appeared in front of him. The stone door was extremely huge. It was nearly 100 feet tall and dozens of feet wide. It was as black as ink and exquisitely crafted. The style was extremely beautiful. On top of the door, there was a huge, ancient seal demon character on it. The word demon was written like a dragon and snake, wild and unruly, extremely domineering. On both sides of the stone door, 2 men in green clothes quietly crossed their arms and leaned against the stone door. They looked at Yi Fan expressionlessly. One of them was fat and the other was thin. One was tall and the other was short. The fat one was tall and sturdy, with huge eyes and a long face. The thin one had a sharp mouth, monkey cheeks, and slender arms. It was the heavenly devil palace. He had finally arrived. When Yi Fan saw this scene in midair, he was overjoyed and increased his speed. Just like what was recorded in the Devil Book, after passing through the illusion world, he would arrive at the devil realm. Whoosh! The distance of 100 feet was covered in the blink of an eye. Yi Fan's figure instantly landed in front of the stone door. Who are you? Why have you come to the devil realm? On the left side of the stone door, the man in green clothes with huge eyes and a long face asked in a low, muffled voice. I am Yi Fan. Of course, I have come here to be possessed by the devil, Yi Fan replied. Possessed by the devil? He. On the right side of the stone door, The man in green clothes with a sharp mouth, monkey cheeks, and slender arms laughed. Do you think that the Heavenly Devil Palace is a place where you can come and go as you please? What? Are there other rules here? Yifan looked up and asked. Rules? Humph. The monkey-faced man sneered. We are the gatekeepers of the Heavenly Devil Palace. If you want to enter the Heavenly Devil Palace, you have to go through us first. If we say you can enter, you can enter. If we say you can't enter, you can't enter. Do you understand? The burly man with a long face said in a low, muffled voice. What do you want me to do? Yifan asked calmly. Hee. The monkey-faced man laughed strangely. No one has come to the Devil Realm for a long time. The last time a Taoist priest with the surname Li came here, he was scared back to the human world after hearing the conditions of being possessed by the devil. How boring. Last time, we casually changed our appearance and fooled that Taoist priest. That guy probably still thinks that we are the heavenly devils, the horse-faced man said to the monkey-faced man with a smile. How could someone like him have the right to meet the Devil King? The monkey-faced man said with a smile. I'm very clear about the conditions of being possessed by the devil. Isn't it to leave one's primordial spirit in the Devil Palace after death to lure people in? You don't have to waste your breath, Yifan said calmly. From their conversation, Yifan could tell that the last time Li Si came to the Devil Realm, he was fooled by the two of them and thought that they were the heavenly devils. In fact, they were just a pair of gatekeepers. Seeing that you were able to break through the illusion just now, you do have some skills, the monkey-faced man said to Yifan with a smile. We brothers haven't fought with anyone for nearly 1,000 years. Now that we've met you, we have to learn from each other. Don't you think so, Brother Ma? The monkey-faced man said as he turned to look at the horse-faced man. Brother Ma is right, the horse-faced man said with a smile. We haven't fought with anyone for a long time. I don't even know how powerful the experts in the human world are now. You want to fight with me? Yifan asked with a frown. Fight? That's what you call fighting in the human world, the monkey-faced man said with a smile. Don't worry, we won't kill you. As he spoke, he slowly walked toward Yifan. The horse-faced man also had an evil smile on his face. He rubbed his hands together and walked toward Yifan step by step. Seeing this, Yifan immediately mobilized the spiritual power in his body. Buzz! A 3-foot-wide, 5-colored ball of light instantly appeared around Yifan. Buzz, 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 red, purple, white, gold, and green. 5 streaks of lightning flashed around the ball of light. Interesting, the monkey-faced man said as his eyes lit up when he saw Yifan's protective ball of light. This kid is much more powerful than that Li guy, the horse-faced man said excitedly as he rubbed his hands together. Yifan narrowed his eyes and readied himself for battle. Mind the monkey, mind the horse. Don't be rude. Rumble. Following the clear voice of a man, the huge stone door slowly opened. Countless rays of white light shot out from the stone door. After hearing this man's voice, the monkey-faced man and horse-faced man's expressions changed. They immediately stood to the left and right with their heads bowed. It was obvious that this person was far more powerful than the gatekeepers. Otherwise, the two of them wouldn't be so nervous. Amidst the white light, a middle-aged man slowly walked out from the stone door. This person was wearing a beautiful black robe with a green jade belt around his waist. His face was like a crown of jade, his lips were red, and his teeth were white. Subordinate greets, Lord Demon Envoy. The monkey-faced man and horse-faced man bowed their heads and said in unison, You two are really bold. You even dare to block Eldritch's carriage. Do you not want to live anymore? The person coldly looked at the two people who had their heads bowed and asked, Sia, Eldritch. When the monkey-faced man heard these two words, his expression changed greatly. He was so shocked that he couldn't even speak properly. The horse-faced man didn't even need to be mentioned. He almost fell to the ground. Mr. Eldritch, you are indeed very punctual. We meet again. The black-robed demon envoy said to Yifan with a smile. Yifan was shocked when he heard this. He never thought that Eldritch had already predicted when he would come to the demon palace. Yi Fan, who had dispersed his spirit power, looked at the black-robed demon envoy in disbelief. Lord Demon Envoy is waiting for Mr. in the demon palace. Please, the black-robed man said. He extended his hand toward the stone door and invited Yi Fan in. Yi Fan nodded to the black-robed demon envoy with a dignified expression and slowly walked through the stone door. The black-robed demon envoy followed closely behind. Asterisk Hong Long Long. Asterisk after the two of them walked through the stone door suddenly closed. I didn't think that this person was the reincarnation of Eldritch. We brothers have caused a great disaster this time. The monkey-faced man looked at the slowly closing stone door and muttered. He and the demon envoy were close friends. If the demon envoy knew that we made things difficult for him, I don't know how he would punish us. The horse-faced man said with a sad face. Chapter 545. After entering the gates of the demon world, the scene in front of Yi Fan made him feel disbelief. He had thought that since this world was called the demon world, it would be dark inside, without any light from the sun or moon, filled with hostility and death. But the scene in front of him was completely different from what he had imagined. Here, the ground was paved with gold and inlaid with jadeite. White jade was the railings and colored glass was the tree. Countless rare gems of various colors were hanging on the treasured tree, shining with dazzling rainbow-colored radiance. When a breeze blew, it produced a pleasant tinkling sound. The ground here was so wide that he could not see the end. Everywhere he looked, there was a golden light shining and the light of jewels. The scene in front of him shocked Yi Fan so much that his chin almost fell off. His face was filled with shock as he stood there dumbfounded. He could not believe that everything in front of him was real. The Yi family's wealth was so great that it could rival a country's wealth. Since he was young, he had seen all kinds of luxurious places and seen all kinds of treasures. But as the saying goes, don't be afraid of not knowing what is good. Be afraid of comparing. The treasures he had seen before were like dung compared to what was in front of him. His white jade mask could be said to be rare in the human world, but compared to the treasures of the demon world, it was like trash. If it were not for the large, ancient demon character on the gate behind him, he would have thought that he had come to the heaven realm. Mr. Eldritch, Mr. Eldritch? The black-robed demon envoy, standing beside him, reminded Yi Fan with a smile. Yi Fan recovered from his shock and turned his head to look at the black-robed demon envoy. Mr. Eldritch, the demon palace is in front, please. The black-robed demon envoy said to Yi Fan and politely extended his hand forward. At the same time, his body slowly floated up half a foot from the ground. Thank you, Sir Demon Envoy. Yi Fan nodded to the black-robed demon envoy and also floated half a foot from the ground. Mr. Eldritch is too polite. The black-robed demon envoy smiled and said, You can call me Flame Demon. I don't dare to be called Sir. Mister, please come this way. As the black-robed demon envoy spoke, he slowly floated forward. Yi Fan activated his movement technique and walked side by side with the black-robed demon envoy. Mind Monkey and Mind Horse had eyes, but failed to see and offended Mister. I hope Mister will not take offense. The black-robed demon envoy called Flame Demon said to Yi Fan. It turned out that the two gatekeepers were called Heart Monkey and Mind Horse. Their names matched their appearances very well. One had a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks, while the other had a horse-like face. Yi Fan thought to himself, Lord Demon Envoy is too polite. Guarding the demon palace is part of their duty. This matter cannot be blamed on them. Yi Fan replied, Sir's temper is still the same as it was several hundred years ago. Those who are high are trampled on, while those who are low are respected. The Flame Demon turned to look at Yi Fan and said with a smile. Yi Fan smiled awkwardly. Those who were high were trampled on, while those who were low were revered. In his previous life, he was really crazy and had a bad temper. Lord Demon Envoy just said that I kept my promise. Could it be that I came here in my previous life? Yi Fan asked the flame demon. You didn't just come here. The black-robed flame demon bitterly smiled. In the past, Mr. came to the demon world alone and competed in cultivation with the demon sovereign. You almost destroyed the demon world. Competed in cultivation? Against the demon sovereign? The flame demon's words left Yi Fan dumbstruck. This eldritch was truly wild and unrestrained. He actually came here to fight with the demon king. Mr. and the demon sovereign fought for less than an hour, but the demon son and demon grandson took 3 whole years to repair this place. The flame demon said with a smile. Did Mr. see the gate of the demon palace just now? It turned out that it was made of gold. Back then, when Mr. came, he was also stopped at the door by Heart Monkey and Mind Horse. However, Mr. did not fight with them. Instead, he kicked down the door of the demonic world and swaggered into the demonic palace. Later, he used the sturdier black demon stone to build the gate of the demon world. Yi Fan swallowed a mouthful of saliva and did not reply. That gate was several thousand feet tall and several hundred feet wide. If it was made of gold, it would weigh at least several million pounds. But Eldritch actually kicked it down with a single kick. Yi Fan could not imagine that scene. After floating several thousand feet, a huge mountain peak appeared in Yi Fan's sight. This mountain was steep and over 10,000 feet tall. Green pines and cypresses were everywhere, and it was overflowing with greenery. But what was strange was that there was a gap about 3 feet wide in the middle of this mountain. From the peak to the foot of the mountain, it was extremely straight, as if it had been cut by a knife or an axe. This narrow road, which was about 3 feet wide, directly divided the mountain into 2. Mister, what do you think of the scenery of this mountain? Seeing Yi Fan looking at the mountain peak, the flame demon asked with a smile. This mountain's uncanny workmanship is truly breathtaking, Yi Fan replied. Haha. Hearing this, the flame demon laughed loudly. Why is the demon envoy laughing? Yi Fan was puzzled when he saw the flame demon laugh for no reason. Uncanny workmanship is not the right word, the flame demon said with a smile. It should be more accurate to say that it is an uncanny workmanship. Uncanny workmanship. Yi Fan frowned. This was the first time he had heard this term. A few hundred years ago, this mountain was split into 2 by Mr. using the proud moon heavenly scripture. The 2 peaks were separated by a distance of more than 10 feet. Afterwards, the demon lord personally combined the 2 peaks and left this 3 feet wide crack as a memorial. The flame demon laughed. Mr. is eldritch, and my master is the demon lord. If this scenery is not an uncanny workmanship, what else can it be? Ha! The flame demon said it casually, but Yi Fan was scared out of his wits. His face turned pale. He could not imagine what kind of earth-shattering scene it was at that time. To be able to split this 1,000 feet tall mountain into 2, just what kind of cultivation level did Eldritch reach back then? The Demon Lord's power was even more shocking. He was able to merge the 2 mountains into one with his own strength. One was uncanny, the other was demonic. The cultivation level of these 2 was so high that Yi Fan could not imagine it. Thinking of this, Yi Fan could not help but shake his head and smile bitterly. He had the Shintian secret technique and the proud moon heavenly scripture, 2 great techniques. But he had come to the demon realm in search of power. It was really ironic. It was like holding a golden bowl and begging for food. Who won that competition? Yi Fan asked. I don't know, the flame demon said with a smile. You don't know? Yi Fan asked with a frown. Mr. said that it was easier to destroy a mountain than to restore it, so he thought the demon lord won. The demon lord said that Mr. had such power as a primordial spirit, so he thought Mr. was more skilled and won. As for who won, no one can say for sure, the flame demon said with a smile. After Yi Fan heard this, he sighed. The palace in front is the residence of my master, the demon lord, the heavenly devil palace, the flame demon said. After Yi Fan heard this, he hurriedly looked forward. 10,000 feet away, a huge black palace rose from the ground, straight into the clouds. The palace had a total of 9 floors. It was completely built with the materials of the demon realm's gate. It had cornices and arches, and it was magnificent. A huge black stone plaque was erected on the first floor of the palace. On the stone plaque, the words Heavenly Devil Palace were written in ancient script. The handwriting was bold and vigorous, and it was very domineering. At the main entrance of the palace, two people who looked like generals with long swords strapped to their waists stood there quietly. The two of them were 6 feet tall, and they were dressed in black armor. They looked very mighty. What a heavenly devil palace! Yifan was shocked. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the two of them arrived at the main entrance of the palace. The Balrog descended, its feet landing on the glittering golden ground. Seeing this, Yifan also landed on his feet. Greetings, Lord Demon Envoy. After seeing the flame demon, the two black-armored generals on both sides of the palace immediately knelt on one knee. The flame demon responded and slowly walked in. Yifan followed closely behind. Compared to the extravagant decorations outside, the decorations inside the palace were even more magnificent. The floor was covered with jade. The walls were made of purple gold. Pearls were used as curtains, and color glass was used as lamps. Even the stairs were made of sparkling and translucent crystal, under the illumination of dozens of huge luminous pearls. Every item here gave off a dazzling glow. More than 10 palace maids dressed in splendid clothes carried jade trays as they walked down the stairs in a line. These women were all heavenly beauties. They had icy skin and jade bones and beautiful eyes. Compared to them, those national beauties in the mortal world could be described as ugly. Even his beloved wife, Fujiwara no Chiko, Jinshan, and Baihu Xiao would pale in comparison. Greetings, Lord Demon Envoy. When the leading palace maid saw the flame demon, she immediately bowed deeply and said, "How are the preparations for the banquet?" The flame demon asked the palace maid. "The banquet has been prepared," the palace maid replied respectfully. The demon venerable ordered this servant to start the banquet as soon as Mr. Eldritch arrives. Ha ha ha, this is Mr. Eldritch. You can start the banquet immediately. The flame demon laughed. This servant greets Mr. When they heard that the person behind the demon envoy was Eldritch, the palace maids immediately bowed to Yifan. No need to be so polite. No need to be so polite. Seeing this, Yifan quickly said, "Please rise, please rise." He did not expect that he would be treated so courteously here. "Thank you, Mr." The palace maids got up and left. "Mr. Eldritch, please follow me." The black-robed flame demon smiled and slowly walked up the crystal stairs. Yifan nodded and followed him up the stairs. There were 9 floors in the palace, each floor more luxurious and beautiful than the last. By the time they reached the 9th floor, it was already shining with 7 colors and filled with the aura of treasures. The two stopped in front of 2 large gemstone doors. The flame demon tidied his black robe and slowly walked to the door. Reporting to the demon venerable, "Mr. Eldritch has arrived." The flame demon said respectfully, "Ha ha, Mr. Eldritch is indeed punctual. My 300 years of waiting were not in vain." Following a clear male voice, the large gemstone doors slowly opened. In the blink of an eye, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Yifan. This person was wearing a purple gold crown of 7 treasures and a golden robe made of 5 treasures. His face was like jade, his eyes were like cold stars, his hair was like ink, and his temples were like a knife. He was handsome and had an aura of bouffon. This person was surrounded by auspicious light and auspicious air. He had a domineering demeanor. However, within the auspicious light and auspicious air, there was a faint wisp of black gas. Chapter 546. Greetings, Demon Lord. When Yifan saw the golden-robed man in front of him, handsome and dignified, he knew that this person was the supreme of the demon world. He immediately lowered his head in greeting. "What Demon Lord? That's what they call me. You and I are best friends. There's no need for such elaborate formalities." The golden-robed Tinmoni smiled as he patted Yi Fan's shoulder. As usual, I'll call you Old Demon, and you call me Old Demon. How can this be? Yi Fan hurriedly said when he heard this. The other party was the supreme of the demon world, and he was just a mortal. How could he be so rude? Ha ha. Seeing Yi Fan's embarrassed appearance, Tinmoni smiled. If you don't like it, just call me Brother Demon. How about it? Well, all right. Yi Fan cupped his fists towards Tinmoni. Brother Demon. That's more like it, ha ha. Tinmoni laughed loudly as he walked to Yi Fan's side. He patted Yi Fan's back. Come. Brother you, I've already ordered people to prepare a banquet. You and I haven't seen each other for over 300 years. No matter what, we have to drink 1,000 cups today. As Tinmoni spoke, he put his arm around Yi Fan's shoulder and walked into the room behind the gemstone door. At the same time, he gave a look to the flame demon behind him. The black-robed flame demon understood and nodded at Tinmoni before turning around and leaving. After entering the room, Yi Fan was deeply shocked by the scene in front of him. Tinmoni's room was completely built from 5 colored crystals. It was spacious, grand, luxurious, and exquisite. It was as if he had entered a crystal palace. In the middle of the room, a huge dining table came into view. This table was over 30 feet long and 10 feet wide. It had jade as the base and gemstones inlaid. It shone brightly and glowed like pearls. On the table, there were several tins of fine wines and delicacies that even Yi Fan couldn't name. The aroma of these delicacies wafted in the air, causing one's appetite to be aroused. Come, brother, you sit. As Tinmoni spoke, he personally pulled out an exquisite stone chair carved from emeralds and gestured for Yi Fan to sit. Yi Fan was in fear and trepidation. He wanted to decline modestly, but Tinmoni was behind Yi Fan. Tinmoni placed his hands on Yi Fan's shoulders and pressed him directly into the gemstone seat. Brother Devil, I came this time to... Yi Fan was not in the mood to enjoy this luxurious banquet. He only wanted to obtain the heavenly demon's power as soon as possible, then go back to find the 9 cauldrons, break the enchantment, use the secret technique to save his wife's true soul, and heal Akatsuki. I already know why Brother Yu is here. Tinmoni, who was standing behind Yi Fan, interrupted Yi Fan. He smiled and patted Yi Fan on the shoulder. Then, he walked to the opposite side of the table and sat down on a chair carved from rubies. Brother Devil, do you know why I'm here? Yi Fan asked Tinmoni. How could I forget what Brother Yu asked me to do more than 300 years ago? Tinmoni smiled and looked at Yi Fan. Yi Fan frowned. It seemed like Eldritch already knew that he was here to become a demon more than 300 years ago. Brother Yu, don't worry. I've already arranged what you asked me to do. Tinmoni smiled and said to Yi Fan, in that case, please teach me the heavenly demon's power. Yi Fan immediately stood up from his chair and said to Tinmoni with cupped fists, Brother Devil, please teach me the heavenly demon's power. This matter can't be rushed, Tinmoni said as he gestured for Yi Fan to sit down. Can't be rushed. Yi Fan slowly sat down and asked, you've just come to the demon realm, and your primordial spirit has yet to adapt to the aura of the demon realm. How can you easily obtain the heavenly demon's power? Tinmoni said as he picked up an exquisite white jade wine pot from the table and filled the 2 jade wine cups in front of him with wine. In an instant, the fragrance of wine filled the air, intoxicating everyone who smelled it. When can I obtain the heavenly demon's power? Yi Fan asked with a frown. It will take at least 3 days to get used to the aura of the demon world. Tinmoni picked up a cup of wine and handed it to Yi Fan. After 3 days, you can enter the Heavenly Demon Cave. Heavenly Demon Cave? Yi Fan asked as he took the wine cup from Tinmoni with both hands. The Heavenly Demon's power and the Celestial Immortal's power are completely equal in strength. They can both break the 9 cauldrons' enchantment. It's just that one is an immortal and the other is a demon. Yin and Yang. Tinmoni explained to Yi Fan. It's not easy to obtain the Heavenly Demon's power. It's almost as difficult as obtaining the position of a celestial immortal. There are countless people who seek immortality in the mortal world, but only a few have achieved the Tao. It's the same for the heavenly demon. Since ancient times, there have been many people who wanted to become a demon to obtain supreme power. However, there are only a few people who have truly become a demon, let alone comprehending the realm of the heavenly demon. Brother Demon, where is the heavenly demon cave that you just mentioned? Yi Fan continued to ask. 300 years ago, brother you suddenly visited the demon world and told me that 300 years later, on this day, your reincarnation body would come here and beg to enter the demon Tao as a primordial spirit, so that I can lead you to enter the demon Tao. Timoni picked up the cup and took a sip of the wine. He continued, the heavenly demon cave is the place where the demon world's demon chi gathers. There are 5 great demon pools inside, each representing 5 different kinds of power. As long as you obtain one of the powers, you can obtain the heavenly demon's power. 5 great demon pools? 5 kinds of power? Yi Fan muttered to himself. The evil demon pool, demon pool, desire demon pool, death demon pool, and blood demon pool are the 5 great demon pools. Tinmoni put down the wine cup and calmly said to Yi Fan, you can choose one of the 5 kinds of power. If you enter the demon pool without being devoured by the demon will, you can obtain its power. Devoured by the demon will? Yi Fan frowned after hearing this. The 5 great demon pools have existed since the demon ancestor created the demon world. They have already gained sentience, Tinmoni said. After you enter the demon pool, the power in the demon pool will try to control your mind. What you need to do is to resist the erosion of the demon chi. While you obtain power, you need to maintain your consciousness. What happens if I'm devoured by the demon will? Yi Fan calmly asked. If you're devoured by the demon will, your primordial spirit will fuse with the demon pool and become a part of it. Tinmoni looked at Yi Fan and said calmly, apart from entering the demon pool, is there any other way to obtain the heavenly demon's power? Yi Fan asked with a serious expression. Although obtaining the heavenly demon's power did not require him to undergo heavenly tribulation, he still needed to resist the erosion of the demon chi. His other self had once told him that the evil chi in his body had already invaded half of his spiritual platform. If he entered the demon pool, he did not know if he would be able to resist the evil chi. There is, Tinmoni replied. What is it? Yi Fan's eyes lit up after hearing this. By gathering the power of thousands of demons and ghosts into one can enter the demon path. Tinmoni smiled. The demon path is often referred to in the human world. When a demon cultivates to a certain level, it will either become an immortal or a demon. However, this will take a very long time. It could take thousands of years or even tens of thousands of years. The fastest way to enter the demon path is to enter the demon pool. After hearing this, Yi Fan frowned and nodded. Regardless of whether it was the mysterious heavenly secret essentials, the and gentle proud moon heavenly scripture, or the tyrannical heavenly demon's power, one would have to bear an extremely high risk. In comparison, entering the demon path was relatively safer. After all, he had an extremely strong belief that he would not be devoured by the demon will. Brother there is something I don't know if I should ask. Tinmoni looked calmly at Yi Fan and asked, what is Brother Demon talking about? If you have something to ask, feel free to ask. Yi Fan replied, within the 3 realms, the mention of a demon path causes one's expression to change. Brother who has reincarnated into a human, you possess 2 supreme techniques. Why did you enter the demon path alone? Although the heavenly demon's power is boundless, it still has the word demon in it. Brother you should understand what I mean. Tinmoni said calmly, I do possess 2 supreme techniques, but if I want to reach the next level, I have to transcend the tribulation. I am not afraid of death, but I am afraid that after I die, the people I love and the people who love me will suffer. As for the word demon, I don't care about it at all. Yi Fan said to Tinmoni, power is power. What is there to talk about good and evil? Good and evil. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. If that's the case, is water good or evil? Swords can kill and save. Is a sword good or evil? If one's heart is righteous, one's arts will be righteous. If one's heart is evil, one's arts will be evil. Just hearing the word demon and keeping a respectful distance from it, that is truly becoming a demon. Ha ha ha. Tinmoni roared with laughter when he heard that. Well said. Brother Yu is indeed Brother Yu. In this world, no one can say such words of truth. Come, let's brothers drink to the brim. Tinmoni said as he filled the wine cup in his hand. He stood up and toasted Yifan. Yifan also raised his wine cup and toasted Tinmoni. The two clinked their wine cups and downed it in one gulp. Reporting to Fiend Supremacy, Moji has arrived. At that moment, the Fiend Envoy's voice sounded from outside the door. All right, let her in, Tinmoni said as he smiled at Yifan. Yifan was puzzled. As the huge gemstone door slowly opened, a woman in a pink dress walked in slowly. When Yifan saw this woman, he was stunned. This woman had eyebrows like crescent moons and eyes like stars. Her skin was smooth and her teeth were like jade. Her figure was curvaceous and her steps were moving. She was like a fairy from the 9 heavens who had descended to the Jade Lake. Greetings, Fiend Supremacy. When the woman arrived in front of Tinmoni, she bowed her head and greeted him. Her voice was ethereal and pleasant to the ears. Moji, come and greet Mr. Eldritch, Tinmoni said to the woman. Mr. Eldritch? When the woman heard this name, she immediately turned around and looked at Yifan in surprise. Her clear and beautiful eyes were indescribably charming. Brother Yu, this is Moji. When you left the Devil Realm last time, she was crying her eyes out. Tinmoni said with a mischievous smile. Moji blushed and lowered her head to greet Yifan. Greetings, sir. Miss you, you're too kind. Yifan returned the greeting. When she heard Yifan call her Miss you, Moji's body trembled. She bit her lower lip and her expression was unnatural. Mr. Eldritch has already reincarnated. Naturally, he won't remember anything from his previous life. Tinmoni patted Moji's shoulder and said. Moji nodded. Brother Yu, you'll need 3 days to get used to the aura of the Devil Realm. In these 3 days, let Moji show you around. Tinmoni said as he looked at Moji. Moji, I'll leave Mr. Eldritch to you. Treat him well and don't neglect him. Moji lifted her head to look at Yifan and nodded silently. Brother Mo, this. Yifan looked at Moji and Tinmoni, not knowing what to say. Chapter 547. Under Demon Supremacy Tinmoni's hospitality, Yifan and Tinmoni raised their cups and downed the wine in one gulp. The Demon Realm's wine was brewed from the Demon Realm's demonic flowers. It was extremely fragrant, but it also had a strong after effect. After drinking more than 10 cups, Yifan began to feel dizzy and lightheaded. Thud! Yifan, whose face was flushed from the alcohol, closed his eyes and slumped onto the emerald seat. His head fell on the huge gemstone table, and he fell into a deep sleep. The emerald wine bottle in his hand fell to the side, and the wine spilled everywhere. He was too tired. Ever since Fujiwara no Chico's incident, he had not had a good night's sleep. He would either have trouble falling asleep or wake up in a nightmare. Now that his primordial spirit had left his body and was in the demon realm, he was naturally drowsy and drunk after drinking more than 10 cups of demonic flower wine. Brother Yu, Tinmoni, who was dressed in a luxurious golden robe and holding a wine bottle, called out to Yifan with a smile. Phew! Yifan, who reeked of alcohol, began to snore. Tinmoni smiled and put down the wine bottle in his hand. Moji, bring him to the Emerald Palace to rest, Tinmoni said to Moji, who was standing to the side. I'll leave him to you for the next 3 days. Yes, Demon Supremacy. Moji, who was dressed in a pink dress, said. She reached out to help Yifan, who was sleeping soundly on the table, up. Then, she put Yifan's arm on her shoulder and helped Yifan out. As he watched the two leave, Tinmoni leaned lazily on the red throne. He placed his hands on the pillow and placed his feet on the gemstone table. He whistled happily. After leaving the Heavenly Devil Palace, Moji held Yifan's arm and flew straight to an Emerald Palace in the east of the Heavenly Devil Palace. This palace was the Jade Palace that Tenmoni had mentioned earlier. Since it was the Jade Palace, as the name suggested, it was naturally built completely with rare jade. This palace was one of the 5 main palaces of demon Lord Tenmoni. This time, in order to entertain his best friend Eldritch, Tenmoni had specially ordered people to vacate this palace so that Yi Fan could rest in peace. Chico! Chico! Yi Fan, who was hugging Yumoji's shoulder, began to mumble drunkenly, Don't go," the drunk Yi Fan said as he leaned his head against Yumoji's neck. Yumoji's face was red. She bit her lips, but she did not push Yi Fan away. Xiao Zhao, Hongji, I've let you all down. I've let you all down. Yi Fan's voice became weaker and weaker until it finally stopped. Yumoji frowned. She turned her head to look at Yi Fan, who was lying on her shoulder and drooling. Chico, Xiao Zhao, Hongji. These 3 names were obviously women's names. Moreover, these 3 people's relationship with him was definitely not ordinary. Just like in his previous life, this man never lacked women by his side. Moji, the day I return to the Devil Realm will be the day I take you out of the Devil Palace. The words that Eldritch said to her before he left the Devil Realm more than 300 years ago still rang in her ears. Since she could remember, she had only cried twice. The first time was after Eldritch said those words to her and left the Devil Realm. The second time was when she heard that Eldritch had defeated the 6 immortals and self-destructed. When Eldritch left the Devil Realm, she cried like a pear blossom in the rain, sobbing uncontrollably. Later, when she heard that Eldritch had self-destructed, she ran alone to an uninhabited mountain peak at the border of the Devil Realm and cried for 3 days and 3 nights. She was so haggard that her eyes were filled with blood and she lost consciousness. In the end, it was Tenmoni who carried her down from the mountain peak and used his own demonic blood to save her. She thought that Eldritch would have turned into ashes after self-destructing. She never thought that he would reincarnate and really come to the Devil Realm again. When she heard Tenmoni say that this person was Eldritch's reincarnation, she could not believe it. Eldritch did not go back on his words. Although 300 years had passed, he still came. Yumoji thought to herself as 2 streams of tears flowed down her face. After a while, the 2 of them arrived at the Emerald Palace, the Demon Lord's palace that was completely green and surrounded by the aura of treasures. After instructing the palace maids not to disturb them, Yumoji brought Yi Fan directly to the 7th floor of the Emerald Palace, which was also the top floor of the palace, Yuhua Pavilion. She placed Yi Fan, who reeked of alcohol, on the jade bed and soaked a towel in hot water before gently wiping Yi Fan's face. The man in front of her was angular and his eyes were like lightning. The unruly aura between his brows was almost the same as Eldritch's. Chico, Yi Fan on the jade bed mumbled drunkenly as he held Yumoji's hand tightly. Yumoji let Yi Fan hold her hand as she looked at Yi Fan quietly. After a while, Yi Fan let go of Yumoji's hand and turned around, facing the inside with his back facing the outside. Yumoji saw that Yi Fan was facing away from her and suddenly remembered something. Whoosh! She waved her sleeves at Yi Fan's back. Buzz! With a flash of white light, Yi Fan's clothes on his back suddenly became transparent. On Yi Fan's back, a crescent moon could be seen. At this time, the bottom corner of the crescent moon had turned completely red as blood. Countless streaks of red light were spreading upwards, and it was a ghastly sight. This man was indeed the reincarnation of Eldritch, and the evil aura had begun to awaken. Yumoji stopped her spell and frowned as she covered Yi Fan with the silk quilt on the bed. Then, she turned around and left the bedroom. Yi Fan slept for nearly 6 hours. After opening his eyes, Yi Fan immediately felt an unbearable headache, as if it was about to split open. Skymoni was right. He hadn't gotten used to the aura of the demon realm yet. The wine from before must have been brewed with something from the demon realm. It was full of demon chi, so it was normal for him to feel so uncomfortable. He sat up from the jade bed and pushed open the jade door of the bedroom. As soon as he opened the door, the light emitted from the hall pierced his eyes. It was already late at night in the devil realm. In the hall, nearly 100 incense candles flickered, and more than a dozen rare luminous pearls hung on the ceiling, illuminating the hall beautifully. In the center of the hall, there was a huge and exquisite square jade table. On the square table, there were all kinds of fruits that Yi Fan could not name placed on exquisite jade plates, colorful and colorful. Yumoji, who was wearing a pink dress, was holding a pot in one hand and a cup in the other, pouring wine for herself. "You're awake?" Yumoji, who was drunk, turned around and asked Yi Fan as she poured more wine into the cup. Under the flickering candlelight, Yumoji, who was wearing a pink dress, had a pair of beautiful eyes. She looked exceptionally lovely and beautiful. "Where is this?" Yi Fan asked as he got used to the light in the hall. "Where is Brother Mo?" "This is one of the Devil Lord's palaces, the Jade Palace. The Devil Lord is now in the Heavenly Devil Palace, so he should be resting." Yumoji said to Yi Fan in a pleasant voice, "The Devil Lord has something to do for the next 3 days, so I'll bring you around for a few days. I'll stay here with you tonight." Yumoji's words made Yi Fan frown. When they were at the table, Yumoji kept calling him Mr. Politely, but now she kept calling him as if she was a completely different person. The word accompany made him feel even more uncomfortable. "Don't worry, I'll be here in the hall to watch over you." Yumoji was smart and knew what Yi Fan was thinking, so she explained. Yi Fan breathed a sigh of relief after hearing that. It turned out that he had misunderstood. "Miss you, you can go back and rest. I won't be at ease if you stay here." Yi Fan said. It was inappropriate to let a woman watch over a man while he slept. "If I don't stay here, the Devil Lord will definitely punish me." "Why? Do you want to see me punished?" The drunken Yumoji swirled the amber wine cup in her hand as she looked at Yi Fan with seductive eyes. "If that's the case, I'll have to trouble miss you." "I'm sorry." Yi Fan frowned and turned around, preparing to return to the bedroom. "You slept for 6 hours. Can you still sleep?" Yumoji's gentle voice came from behind Yi Fan. "I want to cultivate and meditate." Yi Fan stopped in his tracks and said, "A man and a woman alone in a room in the middle of the night, it didn't sound good. Your physical body is still in the mortal realm, and only your primordial spirit is here. What's the use of meditating?" Yumoji said drunkenly, "I've only heard of spirit energy gathering in the sea of chi and flowing through the meridians. I've never heard of spirit energy gathering in the primordial spirit." Yi Fan cursed himself for being stupid. He didn't even know how to lie. However, what happened next made him even more confused. Since he was a primordial spirit, why would his spirit energy protective sphere appear outside the Devil Palace's door? Could it be that he had imagined it? That should be it. Yi Fan thought to himself. "I've embarrassed myself in front of Miss You," Yi Fan said, and turned around to look at Yumoji. "If you don't want to see me, why did you promise me in the first place?" Yumoji muttered to herself and drank the wine in the glass cup in her hand. Bam! Yumoji slammed the empty glass on the jade table. She then picked up the wine pot and continued to fill it with wine. It wasn't the wine that made her drunk, but she was drunk. "I promised you? What did I promise you?" Yi Fan was stunned by Yumoji's words. He didn't understand what she meant. "No, nothing." The drunk Yumoji waved her hand at Yi Fan as she poured the wine. "No, nothing." The wine began to take effect, and Yumoji's tongue began to knot. She didn't pour the wine into the glass cup, but onto the jade table. Her alcohol tolerance was at its limit, and she couldn't focus. Crash! The wine pot in Yumoji's hand fell to the ground, and the wine splattered everywhere with a crisp sound. Remember, Yumoji narrowed her eyes at Yi Fan and muttered, "Don't enter the devil's pool." As Yumoji said that, her body slumped onto the jade table, and she passed out. Don't enter the devil's pool. Chapter 548. A few hours later, Yumoji slowly opened her eyes. When the beautiful emerald ceiling entered her sight, she immediately sat up in a daze. Emerald bed, silk quilt, embroidered canopy, and crystal screen. This was the bedroom that the demon lord had given to Yi Fan. Why was she on this emerald bed? Thinking of this, Yumoji subconsciously looked at her clothes. Everything was as good as new. She lifted the canopy, got out of bed, opened the door, and went to the hall. In the hall that was filled with the smell of treasures, Yi Fan sat on the emerald chair and ate the exquisite unknown fruits on the emerald table. It was not because Yi Fan was greedy, but because these fruits were filled with the essence of the demon realm. It was perfect for him to familiarize himself with the aura of the demon realm. He wanted to get used to the aura of the demon realm as soon as possible. You're awake? Yi Fan ate a golden fruit while asking Yumoji without raising his head. Mr. Eldritch, what's going on? Yumoji asked Yi Fan. Mr. Eldritch? Yi Fan turned to look at Yumoji. That's not what you called me last night. Last night? Yumoji frowned. She only remembered that she drank wine last night. She could not remember anything else. Missy was drunk last night. She talked a lot. Yi Fan said as he turned around and scooped a bowl of red fruit juice from a jade bowl with a jade spoon. He put it to his mouth and slowly drank. What did I say last night? What did they talk about? Yumoji heard Yi Fan's words and quickly walked over to him. She looked nervous. She had no recollection of what she said last night. Did I promise you something in my past life? Yi Fan drank the fruit juice spoonful by spoonful. He looked up and asked Yumoji, also, why didn't you let me enter the demon pool? Yumoji's eyes widened in shock when she heard this. She had actually told him all this. Yumoji's face reddened as she bit her lower lip. Yumoji, oh Yumoji, you're such a fool. You know you're not good at drinking, but you still drank so much. But now he knew everything. Why aren't you talking? Yi Fan put down the spoon, picked up a beautiful handkerchief from the table, and wiped the corner of his mouth while asking. I drank too much last night and said a lot of drunken things. Please forgive me for offending you. Yumoji pretended to be calm and said to Yi Fan, as the saying goes, when drunk, one speaks the truth. Drunk words are the truth, Yi Fan said to Yumoji calmly. Yumoji frowned but didn't say anything. What's wrong? Is Lady Yu not going to tell us? Yi Fan asked Yumoji. Yumoji bit her lips and looked at Yi Fan with her beautiful eyes. She wanted to say something but stopped. All right, since you're not going to tell me, I'll ask Brother Mo. He should be able to tell me the truth, Yi Fan said and threw the handkerchief on the jade table. He stood up and turned around, ready to leave. Mr. Eldritch. Yumoji saw that Yi Fan was going to see Tenmoni and immediately called out to him from behind. Yi Fan stopped and turned around to look at Yumoji. I'll tell you everything. Please don't look for the demon lord, Yumoji said anxiously. Yi Fan heard this and returned to his seat. Yumoji's expression was solemn as she slowly sat across from Yi Fan. Please tell me, Lady Yu, Yi Fan said. I'm all ears. 300 years ago, you did promise me something. Yumoji lowered her head and whispered to Yi Fan. What is it? Yi Fan asked. You told me that the day you return to the demon realm is the day you take me out of the demon palace, Yumoji said and looked up at Yi Fan. Take you out of the demon palace? Yi Fan frowned and asked, Did I promise you that? Yumoji nodded. This place is magnificent and luxurious. You have everything you need. Why do you want to leave? Yi Fan thought for a moment and asked, Since you're able to find this place, you must know the rules here, Yumoji said to Yi Fan. After obtaining the power of the demon realm, one's primordial spirit must stay in the demon realm to lure people into depravity. I know this rule, Yi Fan replied. I don't want to do this anymore. Yumoji lowered her head and said, Whether it's extravagant or luxurious, I don't want to stay here any longer. Yi Fan did not say anything after hearing this. I served you more than 300 years ago, Yumoji said to Yi Fan with a red face. After you shared a bed with me, you promised to take me out of this place in the future. After hearing this, Yi Fan's eyes immediately widened, and he looked up at Yumoji. He did not expect his past life to have such a relationship with this woman in front of him. Yumoji, who was blushing, lowered her head and fiddled with her fingers. Perhaps I had the ability to take you out of here, Yi Fan replied with a frown after recovering from his shock. I'm no longer the Eldritch of the past. I'm not afraid you'll laugh at me, but I came to the demon realm this time to seek the power of the heavenly demon. In the future, I'm afraid even I won't be able to escape the fate of staying here, let alone taking you out. You and the Demon Lord are best friends. The Demon Lord will not force you to stay here. Yumoji raised her head and said to Yi Fan, with your friendship with the Demon Lord, as long as you ask, the Demon Lord will not reject you. Looking at Yumoji's eager and affectionate expression, Yi Fan nodded with a frown. Since there was a promise from his past life, he naturally could not refuse. Moreover, he was so close to this woman in his past life. If he rejected her directly, he would be worse than a beast. Thank you, sir. Seeing Yi Fan nod, Yumoji's eyes reddened as she stood up and bowed to Yi Fan. Miss you, please don't. Yi Fan stood up and said to Yumoji, this happened because of me. Naturally, I should be the one to resolve this matter. However, I can only do my best. If Brother Demon does not agree, there's nothing I can do. Sir, you can do it. Yumoji smiled with tears in her eyes and said, Sir, you don't have to call me Miss You. Just call me Moji. All right, Moji. Yi Fan gestured for Yumoji to sit down before he sat down again. I'll agree to this. Now, you should tell me why you don't want me to enter the Devil's Pool. To be honest, I've observed the crescent moon mark on your back last night. Yumoji said to Yi Fan, the evil chi in your body has begun to awaken and it's getting stronger. If you enter the Devil's Pool, you'll definitely trigger the evil chi in your body and mess up your mind. You know about the crescent moon mark on my back? Yi Fan was shocked. As soon as he said that, Yi Fan immediately scolded himself for being a fool. He had shared a bed with this woman in his past life and had intimate contact with her. She was very familiar with all the characteristics of his body. Yi Fan was embarrassed while Yumoji blushed. I know about this. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing, Yi Fan said to Yumoji. The 5 great devil's pools have already gained sentience. The devil's powers within them are no joke. Yumoji said to Yi Fan anxiously, Sir, if your evil chi combines with the devil's pool's devil's powers, the consequences will be unimaginable. Only by obtaining the heavenly devil's powers can I save my wife, Xiao Zhao. And Hong Ji, Yi Fan said with a serious expression, I have no other choice now. After hearing Yi Fan's words, Yumoji was shocked at first. Then, her eyes turned red as she asked, You already have a wife? Yi Fan nodded. Her name is Chico, right? After you were drunk, that was the name you called the most. Yumoji said softly to Yi Fan with tears in her eyes. Yi Fan nodded again. I really envy her. Yumoji smiled as she wiped away the tears in her eyes. Yi Fan didn't say anything. Or rather, he didn't know what to say. Strictly speaking, Yumoji was also his woman. However, he couldn't remember anything from his previous life. In this life, he already had Chico. At this moment, his heart was in a mess. The two fell into silence. Since you insist on entering the Devil's Pool, you must be extra careful. After a while, Yumoji broke the silence and said, Evil devil, in-devil, lustful devil, death devil, and blood devil. You must choose one of the 5 great devil's pools according to your situation. If you choose the wrong one, your primordial spirit will become a part of the devil's pool. There will be no chance of survival. You must think about this carefully in these 3 days. What's so different about the 5 great devil's pools that I have to choose carefully? Yi Fan asked with a frown. The 5 great devil's pools were left behind by the devil ancestor. Their strength is unimaginable. Yumoji looked at Yi Fan and explained, The evil devil's pool is filled with evil aura. The Yin devil's pool is boundless. The lustful devil's pool is blazing with 5 desires. The death devil's pool is filled with dead spirits, and the blood devil's pool is filled with boiling blood. Each of the 5 great devil's pools has its own strength. It's up to you to choose. Which of the 5 great devil's pools is the most powerful? Yi Fan asked with a frown. The 5 great devil's pools are very powerful. However, only the first 4 great devil's pools have been entered. Yumoji said to Yi Fan, Only the blood devil's pool has never been entered. Why? Yi Fan raised his head and asked in puzzlement. The first 4 great devil's pools were formed by the devil ancestors' 4 powers. However, The boiling blood in the blood devil's pool is the devil ancestor's own devil blood. Yumoji said to Yi Fan. It is said that the devil ancestor would take out a portion of his devil blood every year and pour it into the evil devil's pool. The blood devil's pool is burning hot like fire. Its resentment is extremely strong, and it has not subsided for thousands of years. It is said that only those with extremely strong willpower can endure it. Therefore, when the devil sovereigns cultivated their devil powers, they would only enter the first 4 great devil's pools. Very few would cultivate the devil blood's power. Even if they did, they would only absorb some of the devil blood's spiritual energy from outside the blood devil's pool. They would not enter the pool. The blood devil's pool? Yi Fan asked with a frown. Is it very powerful? If you can pass the test of the blood devil's pool, you will obtain the devil ancestor's devil blood's power. Yumoji said to Yi Fan. After obtaining this power, one's blood essence will be limitless, and their power will be limitless. Back then, the devil ancestor used a drop of devil blood to create a waterfall of true blood. You can imagine how powerful this power is, but Yumoji stopped talking. But what? Yi Fan asked. The devil blood in the blood devil's pool contains the devil ancestor's resentment for 10,000 years. Even if the cultivator succeeds, their body will be corroded by the resentment, and their temperament will easily change. Yumoji said to Yi Fan with a serious expression. Yi Fan slowly nodded after hearing that. If that was the case, then the blood devil's pool was the most powerful of the 5 great devil's pools. His body was already corroded by the evil chi, so he could not enter the evil devil's pool. His body already had the yin and yang spiritual energy of the Shintian secret treasure and the proud moon heavenly scripture. If he were to enter the yin devil's pool, the yin energy inside would definitely repel the 2 great powers, so he could not enter the yin devil's pool. The lust devil's pool was filled with 5 burning desires, so if he were to enter the pool, his desires would be boundless. The death devil's pool was filled with dead spirits, so even if he were to obtain the devil death's pool, he would probably become a killing machine. The blood devil's pool. Only the blood devil's pool was suitable for him to cultivate. Firstly, he had an incomparably strong will. Secondly, the blood devil's pool was extremely powerful, far surpassing the 4 great devil's pools. Thirdly, Yumoji had just said that if he were to obtain the devil blood's pool, his blood essence would be boundless. This way, he could use his own blood to save Akatsuki. Thinking of this, Yi Fan could not help but shake his head and smile bitterly. His fate was really filled with misfortune, and what awaited him was always the most dangerous test. Seeing Yi Fan's bitter smile, the intelligent Yumoji's expression immediately changed. Chapter 549. 3 days later. Nightfall. Brother Yu, this mountain is where the Heavenly Devil Cave is located, Night Devil Peak. At the foot of a towering mountain, Tenmoni, who was dressed in a black and gold robe and had his hands behind his back, said to Yi Fan beside him. Behind him stood the 4 Devil World Guardians, who were purple, white, gold, and green. Yumoji was among them. She had already changed into a purple robe. Her beautiful eyes were bright, and her skin was as white as jade. She looked like a fairy from the heavens. The 4 protectors of the devil world were Purple Protector Yumoji, White Protector Yin Ma Sheng, Gold Protector Feng Machin, and Green Protector Water Demon Ling Usually. The 4 guardians wore casual clothes. Today, they were accompanying Devil Lord Tenmoni to send Eldritch's reincarnation, Yi Fan, to Night Devil Peak. Naturally, they had to wear formal clothes and did not dare to be rude. Night Devil Peak, said the white-robed Yi Fan calmly as he looked up at the mountain in front of him. This mountain was completely different from the other mountains he had seen. This mountain was pure black, and its walls were thousands of feet tall. It was like a treasured sword that pierced through the clouds. What was even more inconceivable was that there was no vegetation on this mountain. Countless dazzling red lights shone out from the gaps between the mountain rocks, like vermilion and blood. The entire mountain was black and red, and it looked extremely strange. The Heavenly Devil Cave is at the peak of this mountain. Tinmoni turned to look at Yifan. Brother Yu, those who wish to enter the Heavenly Devil Realm have to walk Night Devil Peak alone. This is as far as I can send you. The rest of the journey will depend on you. As Tinmoni spoke, he reached out and patted Yifan's shoulder. Brother Devil, 4 devil envoys, I'll be going now, said Yifan as he cupped his fists and bowed to Tinmoni and the 4 devil envoys behind him. The 4 devil envoys nodded in return. Yumoji, who was dressed in a gorgeous purple dress, looked straight at Yifan. Her eyes flickered with worry and tenderness. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for her to instruct Yifan in private. She could only pray for Yifan in her heart. Brother Yu, I'll be waiting for your good news. Tinmoni smiled at Yifan. Yifan nodded and glanced at Yumoji. He then turned around and stepped onto the Night Demon Peak. In this Night Devil Peak, apart from the Devil Realm Supremes, everyone's cultivation and spiritual energy were completely useless. If one wanted to reach the Heavenly Devil Cave, they could only climb up one step at a time. Sizzle. Just as Yifan's hands touched the black mountain rock, a faint wisp of green smoke immediately rose from his palms. The mountain rocks on Night Demon Peak were extremely hot. They were scalding hot to the touch, and the places where the red light was emitting were incomparably hot. Yifan furrowed his brows, but did not utter a single word. He continued to climb upwards. Chi, chi, chi. With every step Yifan took, there would be a scalp-numbing sound. As she listened to the rising and falling sounds and watched Yifan climb up the Night Demon Peak, Yumoji bit her lower lip and turned her head away. She could not bear to look at him. With his hands behind his back, Tinmoni looked up at Yifan and asked the Flame Demon behind him, Flame Demon, how long did it take you to climb Night Demon Peak? Reporting to the Demon Lord, 3 days. The Flame Demon behind Tinmoni replied. Demon Bell, what about you? Skymoni asked Water Demon Bell, who was dressed in green and had an unparalleled beauty. Reporting to the Demon Lord, it took me 5 days. Water Demon Bell replied in a lively and pleasant voice. If I remember correctly, Demon Concubine took 2 days and Demon Vassal took 4, right? Tinmoni tilted his head slightly and asked, Yes, Demon Lord. Yumoji lowered her head and replied, Yes, Demon Lord. The golden-robed Demon Vassal nodded and replied, I'll let the 4 of you absorb the Night Demon Peak's spiritual energy separately in the Sky Demon Cave and did not allow you to enter the Demon Pool. Now, I'm allowing Eldritch to enter the Demon Pool. Tinmoni turned around and smiled at the 4 of them. Don't you think it's a little unfair? We wouldn't dare. When the 4 of them heard this, they immediately lowered their heads and replied in fear and trepidation. Just as Tinmoni said, although the 4 of them were allowed to climb Night Demon Peak, they were forbidden from entering the 5 great demon pools. They were only allowed to absorb the Night Demon Peak's spiritual energy in the Sky Demon Cave. After descending the mountain, Tinmoni taught the 4 of them secret techniques according to their aptitudes and characteristics, and named them the 4 guardians of the demon realm. It's not that I don't want you to enter the demon pool. With your current foundation, once you enter the demon pool, you will be devoured by the demon consciousness. Tinmoni said, In the demon realm, the 4 of you have the highest aptitudes. I can't let you take the risk. When your demon souls reach a certain level, I will fulfill your wish and let you enter the demon pool. Crash! The 4 of them knelt on the ground. We thank you for your concern, Demon Lord. The 4 of them replied in unison. Rise. Tinmoni turned around and continued to look at Yifan. At this time, Yifan had climbed nearly 1,000 feet. Looking from the ground, only his white robe and silver hair could be seen. Demon Lord, there's something that we don't understand. The beautiful Water Demon Bell in green opened her mouth and said to Tinmoni, Mr. Eldritch cultivation was indeed heaven-defying and unparalleled. However, he has now reincarnated as a human. Compared to his previous life, the difference between his cultivation and that of his previous life is like the difference between heaven and earth. Furthermore, He is now only in the form of a primordial spirit. If we let him climb Night Demon Peak and enter the demon pool under these conditions, wouldn't we be giving his life away for nothing? Please enlighten us. You think too simply of Mr. Eldritch, Tinmoni said meaningfully as he looked at Yi Fan climbing Night Demon Peak. This sentence seemed to be said to the four of them, but also seemed to be said to himself. Water Demon Bell and Feng Mo Chan beside her looked at each other, their eyes full of suspicion. On Night Demon Peak, the determined Yi Fan used both his hands and feet to climb the steep cliff step by step. At this time, his hands were covered in blisters from the scalding mountain rocks and were badly mutilated. However, he could not stop, because once he stopped, the terrifying heat would continue to spread from the mountain to his hands. Not only would that waste time, but it would also worsen the injuries on his hands. However, if he continued to climb like this, his hands would not be able to hold on for long. Thinking of this, Yi Fan tore off 2 large pieces of cloth from his white robe and used his teeth to wrap his hands in several layers. Before reaching the peak, nothing must happen to his hands. Because this Devil Mountain was able to suppress all kinds of supernatural powers, Yi Fan started to sweat profusely after climbing 2,000 feet. He was panting heavily. Yi Fan, who had long been used to traveling like the wind and riding the clouds, now felt the fatigue and hardship that he had not felt in a long time. He lowered his head to look at his feet, then looked up at the peak. Gritting his teeth, he continued to climb. As he climbed, he recalled the bits and pieces of his interactions with his wife. Yumoji had once told him about climbing Night Demon Peak in the past, and also imparted to him the bitter experience of climbing. She told Yi Fan that the hardest part of climbing Night Demon Peak was not the physical strength, nor was it the physical pain, but the loneliness and despair. To overcome this loneliness and despair, one must have the strength to persevere in one's heart. It was either a concern, a wish, a choice, or hatred. In short, to successfully reach the peak, one must have a strong motivation as support. There were many people who climbed Night Demon Peak in the demon realm, but those who could successfully reach the peak were rare. Most people's willpower would collapse halfway through the climb. The pain would overwhelm their hearts, and they would be mentally and physically exhausted. In the end, they would fall from the Night Demon Peak, their primordial spirits scattered and turned into ashes. Back then, Yumoji climbed Night Demon Peak so quickly because she kept thinking that Eldritch would be able to bring her out of the demon realm in the future. With this belief, she used 2 days to reach the peak of Night Demon Peak, becoming the fastest person in the demon realm aside from the demon venerables. Meeting on Mount Azure Cloud, roasting rabbits in the cave, getting along in the ancestral home, detoxifying the poison in Lingyun Cave, Yi Fan began to recall all the scenes of him and his wife from knowing each other to knowing each other, from loving each other to parting. Gradually, Yi Fan was immersed in his endless longing for his wife. He forgot about the pain all over his body, forgot about the blisters on his hands, forgot about the scorching rocks under his feet, forgot about his cracked lips. However, after forgetting all these, some other things became even clearer. He couldn't forget the mocking gaze Zhou Dao had when his beloved wife lost her memories. He couldn't forget Inchan Daxiong's sinister smile when he ambushed him and succeeded in his scheme. He couldn't forget Xiao Zhao's resolute and fearless feelings when she spat out her inner core for him. He couldn't forget the scene of Qing Chenzi's hair turning white in order to help him. He couldn't forget Akatsuki, who sacrificed herself to save him. As all these emotions surged into his heart, Yi Fan instantly felt that his heart was filled with strength. His starry eyes focused, and he began to speed up. Below Yi Kong, a white figure quickly ascended Night Demon Peak. When the first ray of sunlight shone on the peak of Night Demon Peak, Yi Fan, who was covered in wounds and rags, used his charred hands to grab onto a giant rock on the peak of Night Demon Peak. Using all the strength in his body, he slowly dragged his exhausted and nearly unconscious body up. Yumoji used 2 days to successfully reach the peak of Night Demon Peak, but Yi Fan only used 1 night. He sprawled out on top of the mountain, gasping for air. At this moment, his face was dirty, and his clothes were almost completely tattered. He was even more unkempt than a beggar. Yi Fan, who was lying on the peak, laughed foolishly, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. He had finally succeeded in reaching the peak of Night Demon Peak. There was only one thing left for him to do, and that was to enter the demonic path. Yi Fan clenched his teeth and forced his exhausted body to climb up from the stone platform. His body swayed as he walked towards the cave in the middle. Although it was called a cave, it was more accurate to call it crevice. This crevice was about 7 feet high and 1 foot wide. It could barely accommodate a person. Black, red, green, blue, and yellow, 5 colored lights gently shot out from the crevice, looking extremely mysterious. It seemed like this was the heavenly devil cave that Tenmoni had mentioned. Chapter 550. Yi Fan followed the long and narrow cave entrance, holding onto the cold stone wall as he walked into the depths of the cave. Compared to the narrow cave entrance outside, the inside of Heavenly Devil Cave was extremely spacious. The cave was about 30 feet high and at least 100 feet deep. Inside the cave, 5 colored clouds gathered and smoke rose. It was like a fairyland. The first thing that entered Yi Fan's eyes was a huge black stone platform in the middle of the cave. The stone platform was 10 feet square and 5 feet tall. It was smooth and black, as if it was made by nature. A 3-foot-tall, exquisite golden cushion was placed on top of it. Below the stone platform, there were 5 stone pools of different sizes and colors: black, red, green, blue, and yellow. A 5-colored brilliance rose from the 5 stone pools and drifted endlessly. It seemed that these were the 5 demonic pools that Tenmoni had mentioned. Yi Fan thought. As he thought, he looked at the walls of the cave. Yumoji had once told him that there was a red demonic fruit growing on the walls of Heavenly Devil Cave. It was called the Night Demon Fruit. This Night Demon Fruit was born from the demonic spirit of Night Demon Peak. It took 100 years to bloom, 100 years to bear fruit, and 100 years to mature. It contained the essence of the demonic realm and was an extremely rare item. It was said that this item was specially prepared by the demonic ancestor for those who climbed Night Demon Peak. Not only could it replenish the power of the primordial spirit and calm the soul, but could also greatly increase the power of those who consumed it and fill their demonic spirit. However, Yumoji had also warned Yi Fan that this item could only be consumed 3 times at a time. It could only be consumed once every 3 years. If one consumed too much, the demonic spirit essence would directly destroy the primordial spirit of the person who consumed it. Spirit extinguishing soul powder. Sure enough, on the walls of Heavenly Devil Cave, there were countless green wild vines that were full of vitality. On the wild vines, there were dozens of red demonic fruits that shone with a dazzling red light. It was the Night Demon Fruit. When Yi Fan saw it, he was delighted. Ignoring the soreness all over his body, he quickly walked to the stone wall and picked 3 Night Demon Fruits the size of walnuts from the wild vines with his trembling hands that were scorched and bleeding. The fruits were glowing red. This Night Demon Fruit was completely different from other fruits. Not only was it surrounded by a bright red glow, but it also emitted a refreshing fragrance. What surprised Yi Fan even more was that the shape of the Night Fiend fruit was neither circular nor elongated. Instead, it was shaped like a skull. Looking at the 3 Night Demon Fruits in his hand, the unkempt Yi Fan shook his head and smiled bitterly. Night Demon Peak, Night Demon Fruit, Yi Fan. The 3 of them seemed to be inextricably linked. He picked up a demonic fruit and popped it into his mouth. As soon as the demonic fruit entered his mouth, it instantly released an extremely dazzling red light. Light shot out from Yi Fan's head, illuminating the green vines on the stone wall with a blood-red hue. Yi Fan's eyes widened, and his face was full of disbelief. He only felt an extremely domineering force instantly explode from the demonic fruit in his mouth, quickly spreading to his limbs and bones. Buzz. Yifan's neck also began to release a red light. Chest, torso, limbs, the red light surged all the way down. Yifan screamed in pain. His body, which was almost numb just now, was now in unbearable pain, as if it was being torn apart inch by inch. As the pain intensified, Yifan's body slowly rose from the ground and floated more than 7 feet in the air. Yifan looked up at the sky and screamed in pain, almost fainting. Chi! When the red light spread to Yifan's hands, they were already charred like charcoal, and the bloody scabs on his palms began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Patter, patter, charred black blood clots and skin fragments continued to fall from Yifan's palms. At the same time, new flesh and blood began to slowly grow from his palms. In the blink of an eye, all the wounds on Yifan's body disappeared, and his bloody palms returned to normal. Bang! When all the wounds on Yifan's body were completely healed, the red light on Yifan's body instantly exploded and disappeared. Whoosh! Following the disappearance of the red light, Yifan's white robe, which had been worn into tatters, instantly scattered in all directions. Yifan, who was completely naked, slowly landed on the ground from midair. He stretched out his hands in front of his eyes and looked at his perfectly healed hands in disbelief. His face was full of excitement. This night demon fruit is really amazing. Just one was enough to heal me completely. If I eat 2 more, wouldn't I be able to reach a higher level? He thought to himself as he picked up another one and put it to his mouth. However, he quickly stopped what he was doing. Xiao Zhao was still in her fox form, and Akatsuki's fate was unknown. Since this item was so precious, it might be able to help them. Yifan thought to himself as he plucked a green leaf from the stone wall and carefully wrapped the 2 demonic fruits in his hands. Although there were still dozens of night demon fruits in the heavenly devil cave, these demonic fruits only ripened once every 300 years. They were too precious. Even if he and Tenmoni were best friends in his previous life, he couldn't pluck too many. Speaking of which, he ate these fruits to recover his strength and enter the devil's pool. Now that his strength had recovered and his wounds had completely healed, he no longer needed these precious demonic fruits. After putting the wrapped demonic fruits to one side, the naked Yifan slowly walked to the 5 great devil's pools and carefully examined them one by one. Black, red, green, blue, and yellow lights of 5 different colors shone out from the 5 great devil's pools. The evil devil's pool was shrouded in green light and filled with evil chi. This pool was so green that the bottom couldn't be seen, and an image of a smiling human face appeared in the middle of the pool. It had eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, and was looking at Yifan with a smile. The blue light, surging in the dense Yin Chi, was the Yin Demon Pool. The water in the Yin Demon Pool was dark blue and filled with a baleful aura. A pair of eyes filled with incomparable resentment floated in the water and stared fixedly at Yifan. A yellow light flickered and was full of vitality. This was the Desire Demon Pool. The water in the pool was golden and sparkling. A half-naked, peerless beauty was leaning against the water with a charming smile on her face. She used her pink arms to splash the water and looked at Yifan with her charming eyes. Her eyes were filled with tenderness, and she looked at Yifan with a flirtatious expression. The naked Yifan closed his eyes and quickly walked away, arriving in front of the next devil's pool. This devil's pool was shrouded in black light and filled with death chi. The water was as black as ink, and within the black light, there were countless evil spirits baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at Yifan. They wanted nothing more than to tear Yifan to shreds. It was a scene that would cause anyone who saw it to tremble in fear. This devil's pool was the dead devil's pool. The countless Yuan Shun that fell to their deaths from the Night Devil Peak were all sucked into the dead devil's pool. They didn't enter the devil's pool when they were alive, but after they died, they became a part of the dead devil's pool. Yifan thought as he arrived in front of the 5th devil's pool, which was also the last devil's pool, the blood devil's pool. This pool's water shone with a dazzling red light. The demonic blood patterns in the pool didn't move at all and were as smooth as a mirror. Different from the other devil's pools, this blood devil's pool didn't have anyone in it. It looked extremely ordinary. This little brother, you wouldn't be thinking of entering this devil's pool, right? Ha ha! The half-naked beauty in the lake of desire giggled at Yifan. Why don't you come to my place? Big sister will play with you properly, The naked woman looked at Yifan with a charming smile. Her body was half lying on the devil's pool, and the side of her chest was unobstructed. Yifan didn't care about the naked woman. At this moment, his state of mind couldn't be disturbed. He quietly looked at the blood devil's pool in front of him and tried his best to adjust his state of mind to a state where there were no distractions. What? Are you embarrassed? He. The naked woman in the devil's pool giggled as she used her jade-like hands to support her chin. She stared at Yifan's naked body and said coquettishly, "Lust was the leader of all evils, and filial piety was the most important of all virtues." The naked woman in the devil's pool was born from endless desires. If the person in front of her was a man, she would turn into a peerless beauty and tease him. If the person in front of her was a woman, she would turn into a handsome man and tease him. What was even more amazing was that she had an ability that the other devil's pools didn't have. That was the ability to see through a person's desires. Moreover, she could change according to the other person's personality and preferences. Yifan still didn't say anything. To deal with this kind of situation, ignoring it was the best way. "Langjun, do you miss me?" Fujiwara no Chico's voice immediately came out of the naked woman's mouth. Yifan was startled when he heard this. He subconsciously looked at the naked woman. Looking at her didn't matter, but after looking at her, Yifan was so shocked that his eyes widened. The naked woman in the devil's pool had already turned into Fujiwara no Chico's appearance. Furthermore, she was completely naked. She had already seen through all the desires in Yifan's heart. She had even seen through the intimate scene between him and Fujiwara no Chico. Among the 5 devil's pools, apart from the blood devil's pool, the devil's pool was the most difficult to deal with. Apart from sages, everyone had their own desires: wealth, sex, fame, food, and sleep. Who in this world could escape from these 5 words? Because of this, the power of the devil's spirit in the devil's pool was extraordinary. As long as her desires were not extinguished, her power would be endless. "Come on." The naked Fujiwara no Chico kept twisting her waist. Her hands played with her waterfall-like black hair as she coquettishly said to Yifan. Yifan wanted to get angry, but he didn't dare to do so. As long as he got angry, his heart would be filled with killing intent. If there was killing intent, there would naturally be killing desire. This way, not only would his state of mind be in chaos, the devil's spirit in the devil's pool would also draw power from his desires. He had to remain calm. Thinking of this, Yifan smiled. "All right, I'll wait for you here. You can come out." Yifan smiled at Fujiwara no Chico. The coquettish smile on Fujiwara no Chico's face disappeared. Although she had boundless power and could change into thousands of forms, there was one thing she couldn't do. That was to leave the devil's pool. The 5 devil's pools were set up by the devil ancestor himself. The devil's barrier was so strong that even the devil ancestor couldn't touch it. "Come on." Yifan twisted his dirty, naked body and imitated the tone of the naked woman just now. He pinched his thumb and middle finger and said to Fujiwara Chico in a neutral tone, "You." Fujiwara no Chico was so angry at Yifan that her almond-shaped eyes turned vertical and she clenched her jade teeth. "Can't come out? Then forget it." Yifan looked at her fuming expression and said with a smile, "Don't blame your husband." Fujiwara no Chico snorted and said, "I want to see how you die in the devil's pool." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.